Hey everyone, Assalamu alaikum. So today we have a very special guest. His name is Ayaz Rahman and he is actually a family friend. My family has known him for a very long time and we lost touch, and I used to go to his house for iftar every Ramadan. His family used to come to our house for iftar every Ramadan, and we lost touch and life got in the way. And Assalamu alaikum, welcome everyone. And just trying to see if he's here. No, not yet. And yeah, we haven't been in touch for many years, and then Instagram somehow reconnected us. He commented on one of my posts and I thought, hang on, this guy looks familiar. Clicked on him, saw his name, and I was like, that name sounds familiar, and it kind of just went from there. And then I, subhanAllah, had a little conversation with him through messages and saw that he had a wonderfully refreshing way of seeing and viewing the female menstrual cycle. And it was refreshing to hear it from a Muslim man. And so I invited him to come and have a conversation with me about the menstrual cycle from a Muslim man's point of view in a very unique, different way. And inshallah, I'm praying that this is extremely beneficial to all of you. And thank you so much for everyone who's here already. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get him to join. So let's see how I do that. Do I do it like that? Yep. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Assalamu alaikum Ayaz. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. This is
Alhamdulillah.
my first live ever, hopefully my last, and I never have to do this again. Yeah.
It's an honor to have you. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I know that after I kind of shared the voice notes from you and the message that you sent about how you see the menstrual cycle, I've had many messages from women saying it's really refreshing to hear a Muslim brother speak about the menstrual cycle in that way. Not even many Muslim women or women in general, regardless of faith, see their own menstrual cycle in the beautiful way that you described. So I just thought, this was meant to be, like Allah aligned everything so beautifully. We've been out of touch for many years. And your family means so much to me and my family. And I miss those iftars that we used to do. Like they were crazy, but crazy fun and amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think people, if they haven't had the pleasure of having iftar at your house, or your family's house, their Jannah's not going to be as cool, because if you haven't had it, you won't know how awesome it is in the afternoon.
I'm kind of not, I think I'm not, sorry Ayaz to cut you off. I'm not sure if it's just from my side or if this is the same for everyone else, but it's kind of cutting off and your voice is a little bit low. So those of you that are here, could you let me know if it's just me or if it's something connection-wise that's going wrong? Speak Ayaz, let me see if I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
You can hear me, is it okay?
Yeah, it's fine now.
I could take off the earphones and just use the, what's it?
Let's try that, just because I really want the conversation to flow and not have
Let's put this
that
thing
kind
away.
of static.
New technology. Let's see if this works. Is that better?
It is right now, so we'll see how it goes like this, inshallah. Talk a little bit.
Is that better for you? Can you?
Yeah, it's better now.
Great. So the earphone.
Someone just commented it's the Riyadh connection, apparently.
There's some Riyadh haters there. Who's hating on Riyadh?
I've never been. I'd love to go, inshallah, one day.
Welcome. Ahlan wa sahlan. Ayaz, your sound is low. I don't even know who was. Shall we just spend?
No, now it's fine. Now it's fine. We can get into it now.
Okay. Alhamdulillah.
All right. So I'd like to start off with kind of, if you could just introduce yourself, tell everyone here a little bit about yourself, what makes you tick, that kind of thing, what you do, all of that sort of stuff, just like as brief and as amazing as possible.
No pressure. All right. I'm in Riyadh at the moment, Saudi Arabia. Welcome people to the desert land. I'm a project manager in healthcare and IT projects. And I met Amira through her family. Her older sister used to go to school with my sister, and parents met. And then Ammu is Egyptian. mother Thai, and so basically the food is awesome. It is very, very good. And I used to look forward to the Ramadan iftars at their house. The mint tea is to die for. It's phenomenally good. Oh, the green curry, just everything. Everything was amazing, and it was my favorite iftar in the house. And we used to go every year, and they obviously used to come to ours. And the reason I just saw these kind of cool posts, and you talking about what you talk about, and vaginismus and all of that, and I just thought, oh, Muslim ethnic. I thought you were like Malaysian or Filipino or something. They're on the Instagram, and they like to talk about things. Mo, is that Mo?
Mohammed, he
Yeah.
can't hear you. He can't hear you because I got headphones, so let me take them out.
Oh my days! He's the man.
He can hear you now.
MashaAllah, look at him.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Kaif al hal? How you doing?
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Alhamdulillah. You look gorgeous. Look at
that's very kind of you.
he runs and he's just mashallah. Look at that. Less than 1.5 hours for a half a marathon.
Less than that, but I try my best.
Come on, mashallah. That is phenomenal.
You had your moment to shine.
All right, I'll leave you guys to catch up soon, inshallah.
Wow, women cutting down. All right, Slab, take care.
We're here to talk about women, not about men.
Oh, a lot of hatred in the room. Right, fine.
Yeah. Let me just put my headphones back in. All right, here we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. So what were you saying before you were cut off?
That's great. Yeah, what was I saying? So it was amazing because I obviously have interest in it, which is, well, I'll go into why. But I just saw you and I thought, all right, some Malaysian person talking about something quite interesting and important.
Yeah, I don't know why. A lot of people think I'm Malaysian. It's the strong Thai genes.
Asian, that's why.
Yeah, and I think it's because I wear a headscarf too. Not all, most Thai women are not Muslim. They don't wear a headscarf. But many Malaysian women are usually Muslim and wear a headscarf. Maybe that's why they confuse me with looking Malaysian. And I think also the fact that we haven't seen each other in many years, and so maybe I look different to the last time you remember. Even you look different to the last time I remember. But I was like, you look familiar.
Do I look
and your name? So the familiarity and your name combined was like, I think I know this person, or I remember this person from my history.
No, so I saw it and I was like, good person talking about good things, well done, follow. Someone shared something probably. And then I was like, this is important stuff. Wow, a Muslim woman actually talking about this and her experiences, and a bit brave there. Well done. Good egg. Well done.
Thanks.
Going. And that's it's really, really amazing and powerful and brave what you're doing. And we'll probably get on to why. But really, really important. It's very brave. If you want the man equivalent, I don't see a lot of Muslim men just coming up and talking about their sex lives and saying, I had erectile dysfunction and I couldn't get it up, but this is what I did and I want to help you too. Unless people want to point me to pages, I haven't seen a plethora of those about. And you generally won't. So it's very, very brave, and I thought brilliant. And then when I realized I knew you, it made me even more happy because it's more real. It's not someone out there doing important. It's someone you've grown up with, and you think, wow, this is homegrown, real, tangible, someone I know doing this, and it just made me happy.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. It means a lot to me. So you've told us about yourself. I'd love it if you could go into what your degree was, because it's relevant to the voice notes you were sharing with me, that the fact that maybe your favorite thing in your degree that you learned about was the menstrual cycle. So talk to us about the degree you did, and why the menstrual cycle was your favorite thing to learn about.
Right. So basically, I did biochemistry and microbiology because I was like, I don't really want to be a doctor, but I like science and it's fun. And I don't think I have the patience to try and be a doctor, but I'd like to study science. So I did biochemistry and microbiology. And I remember I can't, this is not going to be some sort of fatwa or a science lecture. You can Google and YouTube, the menstrual cycle and all the lovely hormones and how it works and what happens and, how the follicles released and whatnot. But I remember at the time walking into the lecture and seeing, you have that classic diagram with like the all the 4 hormones, and then you got the the follicle releasing at the bottom, that classic diagram you have.
Yeah.
My mate's saying, did I go to lectures? I went to that one. An hour late, but I still went. God, my uni. Anyway, let's not talk about that. But
Good old uni days.
oh boy,
Go on.
miracle I have a degree, and that was said to me. But it was just amazing. Like the stuff you've got going on. So you've got life itself is created in a. It's coming from her. She's the vessel of being in existence, which is regulated by this monthly cycle that she has, and you've got these hormones which work in a very complicated but complementary way. And the same hormone at one point is switching stuff off, so you can have negative feedback, positive feedback from the same hormone.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you can see that. I've got a book.
There you go.
Just thought I'd share.
Look at that.
What he's talking.
There you go. Brilliant.
In case you're wondering, this book is called In the Flow by Alyssa Vitti. And I'm actually going to maybe talk about this a bit later, but I just wanted to refer to, this is the classic diagram that Ayaz is referring to. And it's probably backwards, but you can definitely Google it. Just type menstrual cycle chart, and it talks about the different hormones.
Released as well, and how.
I don't know if you can see. Yeah, when the follicles release and that sort of thing.
It's just gorgeous. And so you've got this incredibly important activity happening, life itself, and you see these hormones interplaying, and you know the same hormone when it's low is causing inhibition. When it's high, it's having a positive feedback. You've got the release of the follicle, and you've got this kind of incredible synergy of stuff getting turned on and off, and their levels dropping, and one inhibiting another, and all of that stuff. And it's I don't know, you're probably all too young on this thing, but if you remember the old screensavers where they used to have like music graphs and sort of sound,
I remember them.
and that's what it reminded me of. And I thought, life itself is regulated by these 4 hormones. That's just crazy, and they're in this kind of synergy and pattern. And then obviously, you know, you're studying things like how things can go amiss, and everything from diet, exercise. And so when you study the menstrual cycle, and this is why, like, the fiqh of menses, which I don't know, I'm not a scholar, I'm not a scientist, I don't know any of this stuff, she's just got me on this thing, but it's just so complicated, and it's so varied. And so you study the menstrual cycle, go, here's your 28 day, and literally anything could happen. I mean, some people who had like 6 months menses, which is mad. And they were, obviously there was a lot of stuff going on, and it was a very traumatic time for them, and stress and whatever. But you've got this cycle that regulates life and the release of this follicle, which will then, you know, the 1,000,000 to 1 chance of being, you know, inseminated, and then actually that developing into life, which only if you have a kid, you realize that's amazing, that's just miraculous. But then when you lose a kid, you realize, oh, it's actually quite common. It's very common. And just we take it for granted that you're just going to get pregnant, and so we take for granted sex, getting pregnant, having a baby being healthy, as if it's just the norm. And actually a lot of other stuff happens, and the variances are huge, the experiences are huge. So you study the menstrual cycle, which is just awesome, and this kind of delicate balance is where life itself is created. And then you've got anything can happen. So from sleep, diet, rest, psychosomatic issues, you know, changes in weather, it's just, you know, I mean, the psychosomatic stuff is amazing, because stress and whatnot, you're like, and a lot of the stuff that you obviously go into is people's trauma and history and background.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It was amazing to study from a biochemical point of view, to realize that that's the crucible of life, the variance of all the human factors, the internal ones, you know, your mental state and emotional state, how deeply it regulates you and affects your body. If anyone's been under stress, I don't know how to relate. I said I don't know how to relate this to men. That's great. I am a man. Like if men, normally you're getting stressed, so your trapezius all locks up, and that happened to me once, where, you know, your head's down here, and you know, if that's ever happened to anyone, you're like, I can't move, my muscles are stuck, do something, and they're like, no, it's psychosomatic, it's in your head, and you're like, no, it's the muscle, it's locked, it's right here, it's a physical.
Yeah.
And you're told, no, it's a mental thing.
What you're describing is, you know, you're describing something that a man goes through, but it's literally very similar in a woman who has vaginismus, the condition that I work with, which it feels very real. The pain is literally a sensation. And I work with women and say that is caused by stress, by anxiety, by fear. They're like, no, 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 no. It's a pain in my body that I can feel. It's very real. And it's valid. It is a valid pain in your body, but the cause is the emotion, as you were saying. And this whole psychosomatic understanding of pain is really useful, because then you're like, okay, there's a cause, there's a root cause. If I treat the root cause, the pain goes away. If I just try and like, you know, cover up the pain physically, you know, using like, I don't know, for your example with the trapezius, is like get some kind of muscle cream that you put in, you're just trying to treat it kind of on the surface level, but that pain will not really fully go away until you treat what actually caused it psychologically, as you're talking about.
If it's quite pronounced and serious or chronic, you know, putting on a cream isn't going to do anything. So
right.
I had to accept that it was mental. I had to learn about my body, or sleeping problems, I'm sure everyone has. You know, realizing that, all right, so I need to get into a routine. I need to get off my phone. I've got to dim the lights. I've got to watch what I'm eating. Maybe don't have 12 cups of coffee before I'm trying to sleep, or binge watch Netflix. You know, all of this kind of stuff. You have to learn what it is and then slowly do it, and you see the change. And then you kind of look, the problem with health is until you've gone past a certain bit and got to a better point, you don't realize where you were. So if you've just been binge eating and you're obese and just feeling horrible and crap, until you've put in the effort and worked and, you know, changed your diet, your body's not going to suddenly start craving veggies. You don't suddenly go from, I want a Nutella milkshake to a green smoothie. It's only when you're using your body in a certain way and engaging with it that you then start craving healthy things, for want of a better word. Or you start wanting water and not sugary drinks because you're like, I'm dehydrated. I know what dehydrated feels like. And it's very, very hard, because I think, especially for poor men in the world, men, poor them.
You mean poor, not as in like financially, you mean men?
Poor as in they're just stupid on large, generally. They're just, oh God. But I told you this would be a problem. Yeah, so it's just amazing, because you look at it biochemically, you look at this is how life is happening, you then look at it in a real life scenario and think, right, what happens? And if you've got sisters or women or friends, which most Muslim men clearly don't seem able to have, but you know, they're in pain, they got cramps, they're all like, you're just like, and yet they're still doing all the, you know, they'll be cleaning the house and looking after their family and taking care of their dad and their brothers and all the other stupid people in the house like myself. And you're just like, you just think, I mean, taking aside man flu, which is a serious issue, and you know, men deserve that one because it's all. if men had cramps and were bleeding from, if they were peeing out kidney stones and bleeding once a month regularly, or any time at any moment due to life, it'll be a national emergency. I mean, you know, the White House would be shut down. It'll be like, no, sorry, we're not doing anything. We're not signing any. I'm going to sit at home with my hot water bottle and nothing is happening. I am sorry. We got to get off the phone. I'm actually bleeding right now. There is.
Oh gosh.
It's just.
Yeah.
And then the best thing is the Muslimics turn around and it's you know, it's you have, you know, there wasn't enough salt in my whatever, or why haven't you cleaned the house, or oh, women, they're so weak. And I'm like, do you have eyes? Can you see like what's going? I don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't get I don't get how it is, and I don't get why we're like that, and I don't get why. I mean, so I think, you know, biologically it's amazing, and it's very interesting and complicated and subtle, and the amount of things that can affect it, which then result in, you know, huge changes to your cycle, and then obviously trying to get pregnant and kids and life and all of that. It's so nuanced, you know, and so individual. So there's kind of similarities, but just like every pregnancy, every experience, every, you know, someone's fit, you know, people who are getting fit and stuff, their fitness journey, it's very, very personal.
Right.
And what makes me sad, we were talking about this, is the Muslim man's perspective. So men generally a bit rubbish, but then what lets the side down, I think, in terms of humanity and our last bastion and hope, yay Islam, is you kind of expect a bit better, And instead of whatever religious teaching people follow, kind of inculcating a sense of critical thinking and, I don't know, using your brain or your eyes or something.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, where some Muslims, whether Muslim men, Muslim women, because it's not just Muslim men that, you know, don't see the menstrual cycle in this beautiful way. It's Muslim women as well. And I think it's from society. But what you were saying is the lack of critical thinking. And Islamically, we are told to think critically, to ask questions, to seek knowledge. And when we are not doing that, that is where the ignorance stems from. And that's where the misogynism occurs. That's where culture tries to infiltrate Islam, that kind of thing.
No, and I just think before, it's a bit, I just think it's a bit silly if you have to say, brother, do you know Islam tells you to think? And I'm like, cheers, you know, like, you know, we have to know why we believe in God. And you're like, really?
Right.
We're doing it without it? How does that work? You know, there's some, I mean, not to sound Greek, but, you know, if I get that you need a template and basics and beginner's rules, you know, it's a child thing in the beginning. Don't do this, do that, halal, haram, whatever, great. You know,
Yeah.
Don't bludgeon people to death. Don't sleep with your sister. Yay. Don't, you know, like, okay, I get that. But it's just so and like you said, it's this cultural thing, like, oh, women are weak and they're this and they're that, which, you know, you're a giant man baby and you do nothing for yourself. And fair enough, you're engineered by your society and culture, and women, blame them as well. But you, and there's, in my opinion, we only use Islam for three things. One, men controlling women. Two, parents controlling children. Three, husbands controlling wives. Anything relating to
Unfortunately.
that fits that narrative, we use it. So women are different. You're weaker. You're that men have whatever. All the rest of it, just throw it out the window. No one's read anything else about it, read about it. And that for me is the bigger tragedy, because it's just like you're not being true to your tradition. That's not what was going on.
Yeah.
And the worst thing is then, instead of just being honest and saying, this is me, yeah, so I can't make a cup of tea. I'm not going to be cooking or cleaning the house because I don't know how to do it. I wouldn't know how to do it. I'm useless. I'm a giant man baby. Says it on the cover. And women, you're happy to buy or reject, and you probably will if he's a doctor or got a bit of money or an Instagram status. But anyway,
It depends. It depends on the women. There are women, as you described, and that.
For example, like myself, for example, I'm a bit old school tradition. As much as I'm a new age, I don't know what I am, to be honest, but I'm just like, that's really great that you can quote, you know, 4 out of the 5, you know, 3 out of the 4 madhabs and say a woman doesn't have to cook or clean and all of that. That's brilliant. Great for you. God bless you. You're absolutely right. Legally, I don't care. I don't care, because I'm going to go above and beyond. I'll work stupid hours. I'll give you all the things more than your hair oil and a bottle of whatever, or, you know, a comb and bread and whatever. So if I'm going to go all out, if I'm not going to come home and cook dinner every day. I can cook, just to let you know, bloody awesome, but not as good as your mum. But I just, and I don't get why people can't have these convos and just say, me, it's great, you can throw the Quran and Sunnah, I don't care. I know what it says, I've read it, seen it, bought the t-shirt, don't care. This is me, this is how I am. And yeah, I probably shouldn't get as angry as much or talk, but I do, and that's just, people don't do that. They then keep using religion to stuff that they personally feel, you know, and I just that annoys me, because it's just not, you know.
No, I agree with you. And I was having a conversation with another brother about how, you know, Islam is perfect. Like, true Islam is perfect. And the tragedy, as you're describing, is when people try to infiltrate Islam with their own thoughts, messed up thoughts, or they'll take from Islam, like you said, to fit their own narrative and to take what suits them, like you said, in terms of control. And so it's unfortunate. And what's actually happening is people do that thinking that they are gaining something or they are benefiting, but actually it's harming them.
I think this idea that Islam is perfect, it's like, yeah, but what does that mean? If you look at it in legal law, if you look at it in implementation, apart from obviously the iconic, you know, the Prophet ﷺ himself, everything after that, you could probably pick holes in it, you know, and it's just being human being. Like, people need to just chill and say, you're not an angel. That's why he ﷺ was sent as a human being, as a man. Yay. you're not perfect. God's perfect. You're not.
Right.
Keep trying.
Yeah.
The whole idea of I'll have this perfect. If I stick to Islam, I'll have a perfect marriage and a perfect life, and I'm not going to get depressed, and I'm not going to like. Which stories of the prophets have you been reading? Are you a better dad than Nuh alayhi salam? What happened to his son? Unbeliever. Are you going to be you know, a better example or da'i than Nuh alayhi salam? 950 years, job really not done that much. That many people. Maybe he didn't have like business intelligence and media marketing or Instagram. I don't know. You know, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his own uncle. Like it's you know, Asir, like her husband, not happening. Moses, raised in the same house. Stepdad, issues. Like, it's just, what are you reading? What are you taking?
Yeah.
MashaAllah, and everything. And if you do this, inshallah, brother, and you know, like anything playing that Islamic tune music, I just want to burn. Like, it's just so bad. It's like, you know, that, you know, that's why I thought I was impressed, because I thought you were Malaysian. You know, this whole kind of Islam is perfect and everything is brilliant and everything, mashallah, brother. And if we stick to it, no, never happened, never will, isn't. That is this weird theoretical understanding of everything is perfect and you should be like this hasn't happened to the prophets, hasn't happened to the ummahs they came to, hasn't happened.
Yeah. What you're talking about is literally someone, Daffy, is saying, we will never be perfect, we will sin. That's who we are as a definition of being human. Oh, it's just gone up. Hence, we are then told to run to who is perfect. I really like that she mentioned it, because I was thinking about it today. I was thinking that if we were perfect, we wouldn't exist. Our very existence is that we are meant to be imperfect. Like Daffy is saying, we are always going to sin. That is inevitable for the rest of our lives. We will always sin. And us sinning is a great thing in that it can remind us to seek Allah's mercy. Because if we didn't sin and we were perfect, we probably wouldn't love Allah as much as we do. We probably wouldn't be that aware of his mercy if we were perfect, because we wouldn't require Allah, because we would be perfect. We would have no need for Allah. But the fact that we sin is just a constant daily, weekly reminder that we are imperfect and we need to seek the one who is perfect and seek his mercy. So I really like that you mentioned that, Daffy.
Someone wrote something beautiful. Hey, it's El Dudo, Boko, romanticized absolutism. That's absolutely spot on. That's what it is. And this thing of like sin, it's like what ends up happening, and having experienced this myself, is you do all your fara'id, you stay away from haram or what you think, and then you end up with this scenario where you're an absolute pillock of a human being, and I mean, I used to think, if you're what Islam is, why do I hate you so much? Like, the women are just these malicious, bitchy, horrible, like unhappy people who just need to project, and the guys are just like these totalitarian Nazi psychos, and you're like, dude, chill. And you can't, because what ends up happening is you get this kind of spiritual elitism of, I'm not really a sinner. Like, if we all died right now, I wouldn't be relying on God's mercy, because have you seen my prayers? Have you seen my beard? Have you seen or how my abaya is? And you're like, if on the day of judgment, you're not standing there thinking, Hitler, Nazis, rapists, we're all in the same boat, we're not going to get anywhere without God's mercy. And you know,
absolutely.
Said that, he goes, nobody will enter paradise except through the mercy of you, Rasulullah, even me. So if he can't get in, forget his maqam mahmud. Like, what are we doing? And this ends up happening where you divorce yourself from your sin least. God says himself, if you were all perfect, I would destroy you and create people who sin. So you're a sinner now, you're a sinner then. But what Islam allows you to do is engage with your humanity of, try not to do this. Oh, but I did it. All right, seek forgiveness. Yeah, but I didn't even do that. All right, give kafara. All right, try this. All right, but you can always come. It's a cycle. It's not, this is the, it's you're gonna slip. I
think that is basically, we use this word repentance, and sometimes repentance is seen in a negative way, but if we flip it and see repentance in this beautiful way of constantly turning back to Allah, that's all we need to be doing, because we are always going to be sinning, and we could just,
the word is, you know,
it is tawbah, absolutely.
You're just in this little cycle, like around the Kaaba. You're just going round and round and round, and for some reason in the middle of that we think we're God, which generally
cycle, and we're talking about menstrual cycle. And life is a cycle, literally. Like, there's the seasons, like nothing is static, everything is dynamic, everything goes through cycles. Like, there's night and day, there's the hours of the day, there's like like everything is a cycle. If you think about it, you know, we have our own kind of like body clock, the kind of 24-hour cycle or circadian rhythm, which is a cycle. But we're talking about menstrual cycle, and I'm glad that we're talking about other things related to Islam, spirituality, because it's all connected. But the cycle we're talking about here, and we don't have to just talk about menstrual cycle, we can talk about other things, inshallah. I remember that in some of your voice notes, you were talking about how you see sex and sexuality when you kind of studied it in regards to Islam, and then compare it to what people and, you know, Muslims as humans are trying to think about Islam differently to what Islam says. But what I wanted to mention is what I'm learning about that in this book that I shared with you, in case you just joined. The book is called In the Flow, and it talks about the menstrual cycle and using it as your female superpower to your advantage. And another rhythm, so I talked about the circadian rhythm being your 24-hour body clock. The menstrual cycle has a term, and the term is infradian rhythm. Infradian rhythm. And this is, for most women, it's roughly a 28-day cycle. And it is, as we were talking about, the cycle of tawbah, repentance, going round and round. The cycle of, you know, us having this menstrual cycle is a superpower. And I constantly like to reflect on things like why does misogynism exist? And there are many reasons. But one of the things that I started to think about, and as you can tell me if you think this is true, not necessarily for you, because I think that you're a different Muslim man, but based on your experiences of being...
Like, people are messaging and saying, mashallah, that's so amazing. I'm like, no, it's just look at the men.
For you, it's common sense.
Yeah.
However, it's not that common. And us as Muslim women want it to be more common for other Muslim men to think like you.
I mean, that's never going to be me, is it? Come on. But,
no, you're very different. As you mentioned, you're a bit weird, you're a bit eccentric, but that's great because, and you were a bit worried about doing this live because you're like, I'm not an expert on this. And I said to you, I'm glad that you're not an expert, because it shows that regular Muslim men, and I know you probably don't see yourself as regular, but regular, normal, mainstream Muslim men you don't need to be an expert on the menstrual cycle to appreciate it. And so that, I think, is what I, as a Muslim woman, and the other Muslim women who follow me, when they saw your voice notes and your messages, they appreciate the fact that you don't look down on a woman for her menstrual cycle. You actually think it is something that is her superpower, essentially. So yeah.
You can't pray in, like, you know, according to some touch Quran, yeah? And you're like, well, and this is the thing about critical thinking. It's like, all right, so what takes you out of a state of impurity? I don't know, farting, going to the toilet, urinating, sex. Let's apply the same thing there. Stop eating, don't drink. Where are all the men and the women? Because it's women who enforce this stuff. Like, even like if women doing it to women, right? It's ingrained. It's you know, oh, it's disgusting because we are low and we are this, and men. And I'm like, all right, don't have sex then. You won't have to do ghusl unless it happens involuntarily because you want to be pure all the time. You wouldn't do that. Don't eat so much. Eat a date here and there so you don't have to. You're not going to do that. You're quite happy eating well beyond your, you know, your means. You just don't apply the same thing to other things. But with women,
yeah,
like, and the amount of stuff you're like. Think about it. If God made everything for worship, everything is worshiping God, as he says, right? So
yeah,
you're sinning or you're doing good, both is an act of worship, because he's the one who guides and misguides and and all of that stuff. Now, the funny thing is, with Sharia law, it's actually saying you don't have to pray, you don't have to do that, you don't have to so she's allowed to not do this duty, and just her mere existence is worship. And you're like, well, whereas you got to pray, you got to do that, you know, it's wow. Whereas
you've hit the nail on the head once again, because again, I was pondering this, thinking about the fact that how, like, if I haven't done the calculation, and I'm not sure how good you are at maths, but let's say roughly for most women, so most women will have a period every single month. You know, this is if she's like normal and doesn't have any issues. Most women who have a period every single month, it lasts, let's say, 5 days every single month, roughly. And that lasts 40 years. So imagine the number of months within that period of time and the amount of time. So those 5 days each month that she's not praying, multiply that for the whole 40 years. I don't know the calculation, but I started thinking about that amount of time, that chunk of time in her life that she's not praying, yet still gets the same reward as a man who has to pray all those times. It's kind of like the fact that God values us as females and gives us time to rest, but still gives us the same reward. So it's this whole notion of you get to do less and achieve more, or at least achieve the same. And so that's what we want life to be about. Like everyone who, you know, is seeking success in this life or seeking money or status wants to have that money and that power to just sit back and relax and do less. Where, you know, Allah is giving that to us. That's the way I see things. Allah is giving us that period of, let's say, 5 days, 7 days, every single month, to just be like, you don't have to do this physical movement of prayer.
400 days. I love it.
Oh, thank you for doing the calculation. Hopefully that's correct, inshallah. Whatever it is, whatever the number is, if you think about, men will have to, let's say it is 2,400 days. Men still have to pray every 5 times a day for those 2,400 days, whereas women don't. And women still get, inshallah, the same reward. But it's not that we need to think that us as females are better than men for that. It's simply that we need to decide for ourselves that Allah really does value us, and He has given us this menstrual cycle, because there are four phases in the menstrual cycle. It's not just like most people see the menstrual cycle as one thing that happens once a month for a few days, the bleeding part, because that's the kind of most noticeable part in terms of like the actual bleeding, but also most women feel it in terms of like whether it's cramping or pain at that point in the month. But there are 3 other phases in the menstrual cycle that don't involve bleeding, but still within those 3 remaining phases, we have certain strengths that we can use, like harness those strengths to achieve our goals. We don't have to be following the kind of 24-hour cycle of trying to do the same things every day. We can block them out based on, okay, what phase am I in my cycle? Like thinking about the ovulatory phase and how much power there is, like literally that phase that you get every single month. We get the ovulatory phase every single month. That phase has the potential to create life, if that's what you choose, but not just life, create something in this world, because I believe that our purpose here on earth is to create in whatever form it is. We are here to create something, and that phase is really, really powerful. What do you think about that, Ayaz?
I like it. No, yeah, I just, it's funny. Like we do this thing where we're looking for, I like the way you look at it, because it's an issue of creation and making something. And, like it's funny because, I think this kind of leads on to what, in my earlier years, I was more, like I said, I was interested in science, and it was about science and Sharia and objectivity and a kind of much more empirical approach. And the older I've got, it's become way more flaky and artsy and, you know, seeing the beauty in those kinds of things. And creativity is definitely, you know, that eureka moment where everything happens. I mean, it's the case for life. It's the case for you as a person, as you grow, as you develop, as you change. And unfortunately, creation normally takes the, you know, as the menstrual cycle shows, as sex shows, it also involves the breaking of certain things, which, you know, not to get all Rumi-esque, but it's, and it's also a bit of a painful process, you know. So I think us as people, it's getting too metaphorical now, isn't it? But I mean, it just, I think we've got to come to terms with how, this breaking and violent and difficult and very volatile but very fragile process happens. It's happening all around us, and maybe it's exemplified in this way in the menstrual cycle with women, and we look down on it. And a lot of things I think is stuff that we add on. So there's like views, and you said, you know, misogynistic views or cultural views, and then we try and do the opposite, saying God likes you because you're a woman, and yay. And I'm just like, well, how about you just take both out and just don't be a plum? Like just don't do stupid or think stupid things, and you'll be better off for it. You know, like for example, the whole view of I mean, it goes on to loads of things. Like even like we were talking about, like one of the reasons I didn't see this thing when in the menstrual cycle, when you study it or look at it, is we were talking about why it's so sad. So you've got obviously, I mean, everyone, we don't need to go into about how people view, you know, Muslim women are seen, and they're weak and they're fragile and they're this and they're stupid and they're deficient in deen, and then, oh, they're emotional and they're hormone. I'm like, have you seen men? Have you seen men? Have you seen a man hungry first thing in the morning, last thing at night, when he doesn't get what he wants, when he can't, you know, and can't do anything, just get angry and shout and break something? I'm not saying I'm any different, but the point is, like, where is this thing that you're this kind of stoic character of a higher moral code, and women are these irrational things? Not only that, the thing I think a lot of people miss out on is that guys look at women as mental, and no doubt they are, but what they don't see is there's like a method to the madness. It's like you know, whether you call it, I don't know, an emotional intelligence of, you know, you did that, that's why she did that, and they just can't seem to get that link. It has to be a very kind of almost empirical kind of step one then step two, whereas women generally, this is why I get annoyed when women do dumb things, because they can go from step 1 to like 20 and they're there, and they didn't have to do all the working out in between, and they didn't need all the formulas, and they could operate in a very kind of tangential way, very intuitive.
Transcendence.
Yeah, very much so. And that's why it's great to talk to women, because they, like, generally, if you like, men are great at definitely got to give them credit for that. They have this kind of narrow-minded, singular, obsessive way of doing this one thing and just forgetting all else. Women, I'm not saying they couldn't do that. They could do that and have a baby and, like, you know, cook dinner, have 12 careers, run a successful business, and be an Instagram model. But generally, they're just like this weird, bloody-minded, obsessive, one-track pony. But they tend to lack that kind of breadth, depth, and that, like you said, that transcendence of seeing interconnectivity in things, which is very refreshing. And I think and you know, this whole thing of male and female, I mean, obviously people have male and female energies and all of that stuff.
Yeah, there's a ratio of masculinity and femininity in you and in me.
You know, and I know I'm pretty, but, like, do you know what I mean? I just think it's very, very sad, these kind of weird boxes that we've dug ourselves into, and then use to draw these thick outlines on these boxes. And I just don't see it there. I just don't see it. And this is something that you know, you were touching on how I ended up liking all this stuff. It was actually because something innate and also something very sad, that you know, being a horny little Pakistani boy, the way I thought everyone dealt with puberty was everyone's getting obsessed with girls and sex. So naturally, you would study or learn or look into girls and sex, which doesn't apparently happen. It's sort of like a quick convo in the playground, and like, I use the same Google everyone else uses, but they end up at, like, you know, 5G is causing corona, whereas you can end up at something intelligent and discernible.
Right.
And it's just worrying that I did what I felt was innate to me, which was, you end up looking at anatomy and physiology, and you look in your biology books, and then obviously you're Muslim, so you look into the fiqh of things, and the variance of fiqh on these issues, and, you know, things weren't as linear or clear cut or binary as we're taught. And there's a very, very rich history of discussing this topic of sex and foreplay and marital relations. And what's funny is this kind of prudeness and frigidity that we have now was actually, you know, a post-colonial Christian thing. Because when the Christians met, we were just way too erotic for these people. So you've got the issue of sex and men and women and relations and women in paradise, and it's talking about how to go to your wives, whereas for the Christians it was impure. And the seen as far too erotic, whether it was in their law, whether it was in their theology, whether it was in their societies, the way men and women interacted and the freedoms they had, whether it was in their literature, in their poetry. It you know, couldn't be done. You know, women like, generally, and divorce wasn't the way it was here. It was a lot more fluid. And so they came across these Muslim societies, and they were like, little bit too much sex here, let's tone it down. So a lot of the attitude, like, look in our culture, all the brown people in the room, you're from Hind, like, Kama Sutra, anyone, statues, loads of porn all over it. Like, just how do you go from that to just absolute, like, what we have today? Like, how did that happen? There's no,
where sex is taboo.
Huh?
How can you go from what you've just described to sex being completely taboo? Right.
It doesn't exist. It doesn't happen it's just mad. Yeah, and you're like,
It is.
temples in India, your forefathers, they were making statues of this stuff. You were worshipping it. Like your theology was talking about this, and yet nothing. Like it's the post-colonial Christianization of the Muslim lands has resulted in this weird traumatic. And then the best thing is, so that's what we think Islam is now, and then all around us is this liberal exhibitionist sexual culture. It just doesn't make sense. So you've got everything from 50 Shades of Grey in your face to marry your cousin and never talk about sex. And like,
it's like sex is taboo or it's hypersexualized and there's no in between.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
And this is what I would find weird. And this is where it got sad, because the other thing I was doing as a teen is obviously you're looking at what Islam says in Imam's questions, and the majority of them would just they'll make you cry. Like, you know, it's the stuff you're putting up about, you know, people having very not having sex, you know, issues with their sex drive, painful sexual experiences. Largely, she's got to lie back and think of Karachi, and you know, he's getting. And obviously, men are incredibly simple with their on and off switches. You know, turned on, erection, ejaculate, orgasm, you're done. And the thing that would befog my mind is, like, you know, if you just opened up a GCSE textbook, you pretty much, or my favorite used to be the I wanted to be a dad since I was a kid, so I've read pretty much every version of the NHS pregnancy book. Yeah, so yeah, so if you look at that, just finger in the air figure, you're looking at women, sexual arousal, rough figures given 20 minutes. Obviously it's very personal. You're like, could you not just engage for 20 minutes in foreplay and all these problems would go away? Doesn't cross the guy's mind. Anything that's wrong, it's the woman. Then the guy himself, you know, and this is why Mo gets a major shout out with their fragile kind of sense of masculinity.
Mo is my husband, in case you're wondering, Mohammed.
Yeah.
But you like to call him Mo.
He's my Mo. No, but it's just, it was really sad. And if you look at, even now, if you go to a lot of these online Ask a Sheikh, whatever fatwas, number one, the questions being asked were really, really sad. So you're this person trapped in this sexual culture where everyone's getting it and having this apparently amazing sex and all these varieties. You can't even get your regular missionary down, and you're Muslim, so you're not going around. That's
so sad.
If you're a bloke, maybe you can go and have your little secret misyar marriages, yay for you. But if you're a woman, what are you doing? Like, you're just stuck, and you can't get divorced because it's so bad and evil. You can't talk about it because then you're a whore. You can't learn anything about it because no one's teaching it, which is why yay for people like you and, you know, all these others in Village Auntie and Habiba Kande and all these people.
Thank you.
About it. So you're just it's horrible. It's a horrible, horrible thing. And these people aren't saying this is, you know, they're not Instagram generation where it's like you do something for a week and you think you're a scholar. This would be like 5 years, 6 years, for 10 years it's been like that. Or they've had a couple of kids, but he doesn't want to, and they can't talk, you know, I try and talk to him, or you, vice versa as well. And it's really, really sad. Very Victorian again, like the whole concept, very Victorian, you know, the idea of a woman getting pleasure of it. Lie back and think of England, Stacey. You know, like it's terrible. And that's the problem I saw, and it's really sad. It's sad. It's very, very sad. And if you think, to be honest, that's what I've got to look forward to in a Muslim marriage, why would you bother? Like, exactly. Why would you? Where's the? Oh, but mashallah, it's amazing, and Islam solves all our problems, and Allah. And you're like, no, it's crap. Like, let's be honest. If you studied marriage instead of a romanticized notion in your head, and studied all your aunties and uncles and people that you know are married in your community, would you want to get married? The answer would probably be no. So, but it's great. Think about either your theological, brilliant Jannah marriage or your romanticized Hollywood stroke, Bollywood stroke, whatever, you know. And so number one was the problems that I read, and it was sad. And then what's worse is the answers. It was just utter tripe. It was just dog shit on a plate without even a little bit of garnish. Like, the stuff I would be reading is, you know, when the answerer starts off, the scholar starts off saying, we don't follow the way.
I know what you're going to say.
No, we don't follow the ways of.
They try to soften the blow, but it makes it worse.
No, it's disgusting. And, you know, you said, like, they go, we don't do what the stuff. So sex lives are the playing fields of kuffar now. Do you know what I mean? And when you're
Yeah.
like, we don't follow the kuffar, we don't do whatever, we're here to worship Allah, I'm like, great, thanks for ingraining that. Or like some of the stuff I read, I'm just like, how is that? Have you actually read a fiqhi answer to anything? Like, how do you start off by saying the mouth is where the Quran is recited and the most noblest of vessels? I'm like, right, and like, who reads this stuff? Like, who's...
I'm assuming you're referring to oral sex, is that correct?
Like the oral...
Yeah. I get so much, I've had and I still get a lot of backlash for a couple of posts where I've said, you know, there was a post that I did on what women want in bed, and I usually like put like a poll on my stories and say, women, what do you want in bed? And the majority of them are saying they want oral sex. It just feels good. A human with a vagina, it just feels nice for that to happen. And when I go and promote it, and I will only promote something that I believe is in alignment with Islam, I'm never going to go and promote extramarital sex, because it's pretty clear that that's not something to go and do. Yes, there are Muslims that are having extramarital sex, and no, I'm not here to judge, but I'm not the kind of... I kind of say that when I'm talking about sexuality, I am very much God conscious. Like, will this cause me to deviate from Islam? If so, I can't post about it. So when I post something saying women want oral sex in bed and husbands do this more for your wife for her pleasure, I'm going to make sure before I post that it is in alignment with Islam. So I follow a very well-known sheikh, and I check with him before I post anything. And he is a modern sheikh who understands the issues that we are facing in the day and age that we're living. And that's what you need. You need to have a bit of balance.
You don't need to be modern. It's explicitly mentioned in fiqh books from the tops of...
Yeah, you can follow your tradition and don't need to be modern, you're right.
About these things. And this is what I'm saying, like, where are you getting this stuff from? Where are you it's not... Forget about Islam first. Like, just forget about the fiqh books and them specifically mentioning this stuff, which is why, you know, we weren't palatable to the Europeans, right? They forget about that. Open a anatomy and physiology book. Your penetration may not do all of that, Johnny. There's something called a clitoris. What is that? Like, do you know what I mean? Or thinking it's just that little tip, like anatomy, you Google it. You have a smartphone. Like, Google the damn thing, female anatomy, and you just got to be able to read, or get someone to watch a YouTube video. You don't even need to be able to read. But it's unbelievable.
Yeah, so what's happening also is that because of the lack of education in terms of the female anatomy like you're describing, not enough men and women know about, you know, the organ that brings a woman the most pleasure sexually is her clitoris. And there are now studies that show that the clitoris is very similar to the penis. So it's like imagining that, you know, for a man, you get all your pleasure from the penis. For a woman, she gets it mostly from her clitoris. And men, I'm not sure if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. Sorry, I'm just being over and around.
No, that's fine. Because sometimes when we talk over each other, I can't hear you and vice versa. So I think we need to like give each other turns or something. Anyways, so what I was saying in terms of the clitoris is that is the female's sexual pleasure organ, and that's what we need to focus on. And that is, like, if you think about penetration, it's very hard. If a man's penis is penetrating a woman's vagina, that's nowhere near the clitoris. So a woman doesn't always feel pleasure from vaginal penetration. She can do, but it's not that common. There needs to be some form of stimulation to the clitoris. I know you know of Brother Habib Akande. He promotes, you know, a practice known as kunyaza, which is direct stimulation of the clitoris, and it can lead to amazing orgasms for the woman. And this is what we want, because I believe that the more men and women, especially Muslims, open themselves up to sexual pleasure in a marriage, the closer you can get to Allah, because you're like, wow, I'm doing this amazing act with my spouse and it feels so good, and Allah wants me to feel this pleasure. And it just shows you how generous our Lord is, that doing that act in a marriage and having pleasure both in this dunya, the pleasure of sex with your spouse, once you know how to do it right and you know about the anatomy and all that kind of stuff, the pleasure in this dunya also leads, inshallah, to pleasure in the next life. So that's kind of also why I do this work, is because a lot of Muslims, like you were kind of talking about earlier, a lot of Muslims focus on so many other acts of worship like praying, fasting and charity, and those are great, but they neglect sex as an act of worship, and it is just as important as praying, fasting, and charity. And making, just like with praying, fasting, and charity, there are rules, there are principles. Like someone, you know, might look, you know, religious and be praying, but we don't know his intentions, or her, we don't know their intentions. They might be praying to boast, like, look at me, I'm so amazing and so religious. They're not going to get reward from someone who you don't see praying, but they are doing it in privacy and in secret and having the right intention. And the same thing applies to sex. If you've got the right intention for sex, that you want to enjoy it and that you want to give pleasure to your spouse as well as receive it, that is just that amazing thing of, it's beautiful when you think about it, like combining sexual intimacy with spiritual intimacy. I find the more I learn about sex and the body, both the female body and the male body, the more I'm just in awe of Allah. Like, wow, this is just amazing. And on that note, I think it kind of relates to the messages you were sending me yesterday that prompted this live to happen, is what you were describing about, you know, seeing the menstrual cycle as this symphony, as this divine orchestra, and you saying it's like you could hear music in your head. That really touched me, because it's like art and nature and science and divine wisdom, like all wrapped up into this menstrual cycle that for so long people, not just Muslims, people regardless of faith, are trying to make you, or make me, not you, make me as a woman feel bad for, when we should be thinking of it in the complete opposite way. So that's why I really appreciated it, because it's really refreshing for a man to think like that. Not because you're anything special for being a man, it's just the fact that I haven't seen it, to be honest. Like, just like with brother Habib Akande, he's the only man I can think of, that a Muslim man, who is doing the work he is doing in terms of being an advocate for female sexual pleasure. What you were describing is being an advocate for women and their menstrual cycle. And I want both men and women to think like that, not just men. I want both men and women to think like, wow, I'm so grateful that I have this menstrual cycle. Thank you, Allah. Thank you, Lord, for giving this to me, because it's my superpower.
Not all heroes. I just, it's weird. Like, there's this weird kind of distance, and I think it's maybe the way we see God as some sort of Pakistani Maulana who's just very much a prude. And I'm like, you know, God made your sexual organs. Like, he's made sex, he's made orgasms, like whatever it is that you're feeling, it's you know, God's put that there. So I don't get how you miss him out in this kind of stuff. And stuff like I don't know, I just think a lot of guys are very, it's very interesting, because I just think, why would you want to do something, and or maybe it's just very selfish, or maybe they're just afraid or unaware, or because I think for guys, you got this whole issue of it is difficult, like a lot of the questions you get where spouses can't talk about stuff. I don't get how people do that. Like, how could you not just do a brain dump all the time to your spouse or people close to you and share what you're thinking and feeling? What's the point of having them around? Why would you want to not feel pleasure? Like, that's the greatest. Like, obviously, you know, your largest sex organ is the brain. Like, it's all your brain. So how is someone feeling pleasure not a source of pleasure for you? You know, and until eventually you're lost in it. Like, why? And that whole thing, actually, when you say about spirituality, that whole idea of union and becoming one, and literally tawheed, you know what I mean? Like, to make one, and then you do make, you know, life, if all goes well. But that thing of being lost, you know, when people talk about dhikr or you know, being annihilated in God, like the orgasmic state is that kind of, it's brilliant, because I mean, when people talk about spirituality, I just think you don't need to really hit books and be deep. If it's like, I mean, to relate to men, it sounds terrible when I talk about men, but you know, if you just can't stop staring at a semi-naked or naked woman or whatever you're into, yeah, and then, I mean, what we're taught is, don't look at the haram views, look at the halal views, your wife. And then, you know, even your wife, oh, it's good, but you got the Hurulain in Jannah. And I'm like, if that's your little paradigm, And the little cog in the middle, your wife isn't all of that because, you know, you married your cousin or whatever. Not hating cousin marriages. I'm just saying.
Or the wife simply has been told by her community that she can't enjoy sex and that she only has to give sex to her husband. She's never going to look forward to sex. She's not going to enjoy sex. And when she doesn't enjoy sex, the man can't enjoy sex. Because I find when the woman, the wife, the more the wife enjoys sex, the more the husband is going to enjoy sex. And so if you're in a marriage and the man is having sex, and yeah, he might feel some pleasure from it, it's limited. He can't feel that much pleasure from it if she's not feeling enough pleasure. Maybe there are some sick men who can, but I just feel like the more the wife enjoys it, the more it works in the man's favor and the woman's favor. It's like a win-win. But if the woman is, you know, sometimes it's the husband as well, because I get messages from women saying, I feel guilty to allow myself to feel pleasure because my husband doesn't want me to feel pleasure. And I'm like, that's just really twisted. Like, really, that's just like...
Divorce him, please.
Yeah.
Well, right.
Yeah, I know.
Go on.
It's crazy. And this is not from Islam. And it's tragic that people think it's from Islam. They think this is from Allah. They think that Allah wants them to be like that in a marriage and have like a rubbish sex life, to hate sex, or to just be tolerating painful sex.
On your view, that's the thing. That's never been the Islamic paradigm, because sex from God, He's put it there. There isn't an atom that exists unless it's where He wants to put it. He's given women a clitoris and men penises. Yay for you! Like it just, I don't get how people think like this, and it's not found when you study anatomy and physiology. In some ways, to me, it's like studying Islam, because these are ayat, these are signs. They're really biological.
I agree. I love what you just said.
Biological Quran. You know what I mean? It's designed to be that way. It's not going to be another way. What would you do? I mean, God made it like that. It's been like that for a very long time, Tommy. What are you? You know what I mean? Just chop the off. Oh, well done. Yeah, good on you. Well done. That's great. What are you doing? Like, God's made it like that. Why are you not engaging with it? And then when you look at your tradition and like I said, Google, read a book or something. There's loads of people who've talked about it. It's out there. It's this. I didn't have special teachers or resources, but what people do is they've already got a preconceived notion, and so when they research, you know, they scroll up straight to like Islam QA and find something that I shouldn't be hating on Islam QA, but yeah, I do. But you know, that thing that agrees with their narrative, and it's like, what's the point? Like, what is the point? When you Google, look at stuff that you don't agree with and see, is there merit, is there sense? But we don't. We've got that narrative, because especially for men, you don't wanna, and I think sexually, women are just like on a whole different playing field. It's like, you know, you've got this little giant oil cruiser, and then women are like the ocean when it comes to I mean, again, biologically speaking, you're gonna get aroused, you're gonna ejaculate, hopefully orgasm at the same time. Then you've got a 15-minute refractory period or thereabouts. You know what I mean? And you'll fall asleep. You know, like women, multiple orgasms. Like, what the hell is going on there? Like, their anatomy is wired to do that. God made them that. What the bloody and.
Yeah, and I think this is your friend, right? A Hussein Photo, who, oh gosh, it's gone up, saying porn also inhibits men specifically to fully understand women and misunderstand sex. Can I ask you, as a man, as a Muslim man, why do Muslim men turn to porn, in your opinion?
For the same reason anyone turns to anything on the internet. It's quick, easy, and it's just, that's the age we live in.
What are they lacking, and what are they seeking?
This is funny thing. I had this exact convo with a mate yesterday, because I thought you might bring it up, and I thought, do I really care? And then I had to formulate some sort of adult sentences, and I realized, because if you look, take Islam out for a second, if you look at, there's loads of stuff about, you know, people quoting about how porn ruins relationship, and seeing women and this, that, the other, and the whole misogyny and the patriarchy, bring it all down. By the way, look, I'm wearing red trousers. See, you just said wear pajamas, but I went that extra mile.
I didn't say wear pajamas. You were worried about what to wear because you've never done an IG live, and I was like, in this day and age with this whole COVID period, apparently people just wear fancy tops and pajamas. So I was like, you could do that. But thank you for wearing red trousers. And red is, I think, symbolic of us talking about the menstrual cycle.
You're amazing at this. I love it. So I realized I wasn't, because if you speak to sexologisty, whatever people, there's the whole sort of anti-porn, then there's the whole sort of it's porn and it's good and it's healthy and blah, 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 and watch it together or you're alone, whatever. And I was thinking about this and I realized that watching porn, not watching porn, to me isn't the issue. It can definitely, this whole systemized, you know, like taking a step back and looking at what it's doing to people and how it's affecting children and relationships. Definitely, I see the merit in that, scientifically speaking. But I think that it still missed the mark. And what it's missed is having meaningful, deep relationships with women generally, as well as partners. And what I mean by that is, whether you watch porn or you don't, if you're not able to talk to women about these topics and engage with them and be educated about them and share and speak to your partner and say, how was that? You know, maybe men want a giant thing with like stars and you say, how great was it on a scale of 1 to 10, or have some sort of critical business feedback or something. But unless you're able to have a deep, meaningful and kind of broader view of women from engagement with women, it's going to be substituted by something else. And I think that's where porn bugs you up a bit, because all the things that go on, someone may well be up for it and like it and enjoy it. So I don't think it's as binary as that. I think the problem is where you're a little repressed, you know, Muslim boy who doesn't ever really talk to girls, and you know, it's a classic thing here where you could rape a woman, you could fetishize over them, you can hypersexualize over them. You couldn't actually have a conversation or talk to them in a meaningful way because you're just thinking, you know, I could do her. Do you know what I mean? And that's it. Just doesn't stop in the back of the mind. The lad complex, whatever it is. And I think that's the missing thing. That unless you can see, and that allows you to see to embrace their sensuality, their sexuality, to hear their side of things, to express your own, and actually venture that you know, that way. And I think for men it's difficult to talk about, and I'm sure a lot of the people who send you questions, if you were to look at them outwardly or talk to their husbands, and they, you know, they'll say it themselves, everything's fine, we're not allowed to talk about it, it's shameful, it's whatever. And you know, even the work you're doing, your classic average Arab man would feel incredibly threatened by what his wife is doing and talking about. Forget, just even if you weren't talking about your own experiences, just talking about the topic, people could think that this is happening in my house. And it's like, what do you think? Like, people who talk about sexual health have amazing, like, they're human beings. Everyone's a human. The whole point is, this is normal. This is what normal looks like. And
like, even like doctors get sick and have issues with their health. Like, doctors are not the perfect example of health. And I'm not comparing myself to a doctor. You mentioned earlier that you kind of went into biochemistry because you weren't that keen on being a doctor. Mine was like the opposite. I was like, I don't know if it was from my parents, I don't know. I wanted to be a doctor originally, and alhamdulillah that I didn't become one, but I originally wanted to become a doctor. I even did the whole applying to medicine. I didn't get in, alhamdulillah, I didn't get in. And I thought, you know, how am I going to get into medicine? Let me do a biomedical science degree to be safe, and then maybe I'll transfer to do medicine later. I ended up going to St. George's University, studied biomedical science alongside the medical students, and I saw what it was like for them, and I was like, no thank you, I don't want to be a medical student, I don't want to be a doctor. And that was from Allah's mercy. Like, I'm so grateful that I didn't become a doctor. Like, I'm you know, there are amazing doctors out there. I'm not like dissing doctors in any way. I'm simply saying that, well, I think I went off on a tangent, but you know, doctors are not perfect examples of health. They have health issues. Sex educators, you know, sex coaches, whatever related to sex, they don't have perfect sex lives. I'm simply here doing this because it all started with my own journey. I had vaginismus myself. It was difficult. And after overcoming it, I was like, what caused that? It was caused because I had a lack of sex education. So I had to go on my own journey and educate myself. It's not like I went and did a degree in this or anything like this. I don't have like an official certification in sex or anything like that. I just went and did my own research, and I read the books, the sex education books that are out there, And the more I learned about sex and the body, the just like the feeling of just immense gratitude that Allah created this. Like, imagine a world without sex. How terrible would that be?
Oh, good God. What?
Yeah.
But it's sorry, I just remembered something that I said about the paradigm of don't go after the haram sex and the halal sex, which is a problem, and then this amazing afterlife of the hurul ain. And it was related to what you said. I just saw divinity at the top and I just remembered. It's funny because we separate all of these things out, which I think sex is a good example of, like I said, union. So the reason you're attracted to the so-called haram, whatever, lust side is because of God, because God says he's al-jamal, right? He's beauty itself. So the beauty that he's put in that, you know, Latina walking down the street that you can't get your eyes off her bottom, God's put that there, and God's put it in life. And guess what? He's put it in the hurul ain as well. Group them all together. Forget whether it's dunya or akhirah. Why stop there? And that's what people do. They just think, but if I make it into paradise in this absolute great place where I'm eating and having, you know, tons of sex, yay. And I'm like, but why stop there? These things in and of themselves don't have that ability to lure you or pull you. That attraction you feel is a byproduct. That's a byproduct. That doesn't even really exist. It's God that's the real. He's the beauty that you're looking at. And why stop short of that? Why stop at a man or a woman? And your experiences should allow you to experience, and that's, you know, Imam Ghazali said that the height of pain, pleasure, who knows, that's a different topic. But the top of pleasure in this dunya is the orgasm, which is the least pleasure compared to the akhirah. So it's like a little bridge that if the maximum pleasure in this dunya is that moment of orgasm, that's less than the least pleasure for every moment that you have in the afterlife. So imagine how pleasurable it would be. And he goes, it's a little bridge that allows you to sort of think about what the afterlife is. But I'm saying even that falls short in some ways, because that craving, that desire that you have, all right, yes, it's for this thing or that drug or money or whatever, but it's God who's put it in all of that. So what you're that thing, and this is why I think that spirituality and, you know, like you said, divinity can be explained, that mad compulsion and lust that you feel where you're not able to control yourself, that the amazing highs of love, that kind of mindless infatuation, the insanity that love brings is you know, what else is that apart from the path of the prophets? Like, you're building a boat in the middle of nowhere after 950 years of telling people. If that is an act of love stroke insanity, what is? You know, Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, when he said, when the Prophet was telling people about Isra wal Miraj, and they were saying, look, it's a bit far-fetched, mate. And he goes, I believe he gets revelation from above the 7 heavens. What's Isra wal Miraj? You know, where the people who like, if you look at their lives, they're a little bit mad, you know. The conversations of lovers, like, and this is something again that I think is really
it's glad tidings to the strangers. It's that whole insanity thing, being strange, being different. Glad tidings to those. It's good to be strange.
But it's not just that. We've taken out the love aspect. So what we do, and again, I just think if you're going bonkers over a girl, you when she's not there, you can't eat, you're up all the time, you're feeling anxious, you're lonely, you didn't change your clothes, you haven't washed, right? You're up all night talking to her, you're drawing her name and speaking and all that, if you do. And then when you're with her, you're getting breakfast, then coffee, then lunch, then another coffee, then dessert, then second dessert, then another coffee. You're eating gluttonously. What's going on? Like, why? And if you were just to take a snapshot and say, oh, love is just being morbid and not changing your clothes, or love is staying up all night saying her name, or love is eating and living your best life, to me, it's like, well, it's a bit like the sunnah in that sense, where these great sahaba that you see, someone who went and fought, someone who's staying up all night, someone who's reading loads of Quran, someone who's being charitable, someone who's doing X or Y or serving people, they were doing these things as expressions of love innate from how they express it. And the Prophet, all of them, you know, and what we do is take away the love. So you haven't got a bird to talk to on the end of the phone, but it's just like, hold that phone all night, because that's what religion tells you to do. There's no one to talk to. Why would I hold the phone all night? Whose name am I writing all day? Like, it's like you've taken away love from the religion. And when you do that, what would you expect to happen in your life? We're not people of dunya. It's like, really, you're not going to be, what you going, like, here's where it all happens. Do you know what I mean? believer and disbeliever, Jannah and Jahannam is earned here. You find God or you miss him. How? God knows. But, you know, here. Afterwards,
we need the dunya in order to enter Jannah.
yeah.
We can't enter Jannah without the dunya.
And even Jannah, like, it's a bit rubbish in the sense of, like, it's not Allah. Do you know what I mean? Whether you're going to go for creation in this dunya or the akhirah, why sell yourself short? Whether you're staring at someone's baps in this dunya, whether your wives, or they're the haram ones, or they're hurul ain, that's good for you. And don't get me wrong, some people, it's the greatest motivation on the face of the earth. Brilliant, go for it. I'm not knocking it. But
I love that. I've never thought of it that way. Like, why seek creation in the afterlife? Like, we're seeking Jannah, which is a creation in the afterlife. That's beautiful. I've never thought of it that way. Like, we should be flipping that and not be necessarily seeking Jannah. We should be seeking Allah.
Like, that moment of orgasm, it's an experiential thing, yeah? So whether you call it orgasm or like, you know, when people talk about knowledge and experiences, they would say there's, you know, there's, how do you say it? Ilm al-yaqeen, ayn al-yaqeen, and haqq al-yaqeen, right? You have knowledge of something, and then seeing something, and then the truth of something. So all this work you do, you can give sex education, you can explain what an orgasm is, for example, in your thing, and then you can like show them the anatomy, or maybe when they get married and start doing whatever, or foreplay, they're like kind of getting closer, but they're not there yet. Then there's the moment of experiencing that thing, and it's a bit like saying, you know, what does honey taste like? What does chocolate taste? Those things, peanut butter tastes like peanut butter. It doesn't taste like Nutella. But it's a bit sweet. It's nutty, but it's not like
and you can only know it once you've experienced it.
An experiential thing. And that moment of orgasm, or that moment of being lost in it's, you're feeling something so much, but you're gone. It's like, imagine when your soul was in the presence of Allah, and he said, am I not your Lord? And you said, Bala. Like, there was no dunya, there was no rational, oh, the Quran or the Bible argument. That wasn't happening. There was no dunya. Your tongue wasn't speaking. You were literally drowning in the presence of God. You weren't, you know, all these micro experiences we feel here, from lust to love to pleasure to pain to sadness. There was one moment of absolute unity and drowning in that, you know, ethereal existence. And if you've ever, you know, orgasm is a great version of that, or, you know, chocolate cheesecake, whatever you're into, but it's a moment of an experience takes you over, you know. Like, one of the greatest things you could, like, your whole, like, seeing someone's body just lost in convulsions of pleasure, you're like, you can't contain it.
Yeah,
you can't contain this experience that's happening to you and in you, but what's going on there? And you're like, that. And it's like, imagine, and if that's just a facet or a minuscule taste of what it means, you know, when God says he's beauty, or when he says he's his attributes, his love, his al-wadud, you know, what does that mean? Like, we love money, we love wealth, we love women, we love wine, we love men. Like, all these facets of love that you feel, they're not bad. The problem is we work against them in a very weird, again, Christian way, as opposed to seeing as something that you use and you can combine and bring into you, you know?
Yeah.
And like you said, that creativity, don't hate the paintbrush and the paint and the pen and the paper and the canvas, because then you can't paint, Tommy. You got to use all these things and bring it out in a and, you know, bring you into it. But in order to do that, you got to kind of, I mean, I just call it lying, because that's what I find people doing. They would rather sit there and say, no, everything's fine. Classic man thing. Women as well, just abject denial. And then if you scratch that a little bit, you get, you know, the whole self-worth issues, and I'm bad and this and whatever, and it means I'm not a man. No, it doesn't mean you're not a man. Think about it. Like, Google some stats. Everyone has these, like, just, you're a human being.
Yeah.
Just human experience. It's just not gonna. And the greatest tragedy is where you're not allowed to be a human being. You don't allow your partner to be a human being. They don't allow you to be a human being. And then you can't actually really enjoy anything. You can't have intimacy because it's not real. What, you know,
Right.
Muslim thing of when they get married, I think I'm Khalid bin Walid, she's Khadija. No, you're not, Tom. You're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're Bodrul, that's Fatima. They've never done anything religious, but they suddenly think now that they're going to get married, they're going to pay tahajjud and fajr all night. Not going to happen. You know?
Yeah. You need to be, what you're describing, I think, is you need to be a human. You need to be an imperfect human in order to experience intimacy.
That's it. You're just going to be you. So stop trying to not be you. All my life.
And that's what Allah wants. Allah wants us to be who He made us to be. And it's like you were saying, it's people going against their innate essence, their innate kind of fitra. People going against that is where all the issues, I think, stem from. This has been amazing. I think we could talk about this for like ages and ages and ages and ages. Like, it's just so refreshing to hear this from a man, a Muslim man. So thank you so much, Ayaz. Before we end, I want if you could just share a little bit about, I know that you write some poems. Talk to us about that.
Huh?
You write some poems. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah. Yeah, I just, it's sort of like word vomit. And I would just cough up stuff, and then people would be like, put it somewhere. So I have a blog. It's on my Instagram, IG, follow, like, subscribe. No, don't. I don't care. But you can put the poetry up. It's funny because you said something when you read it. You said you felt it had been written by a woman, and
yeah,
it was really weird because the comment I'd post, like, if I post I haven't uploaded stuff in ages, but I've got stuff to post. But people would often not think it's me, and they'll go. So my pen name is Shamsi Zaya. Ayaz backwards Zaya. Shams, the Shams, he's my hero. So the son of Zaya, and a lot of people just wouldn't think it's me, and I'd be posting stuff, and there would be, oh, it's you, and I'll be like, who else would you think it was? And a lot of people thought I was posting some woman's
that's what I thought. I thought you were sharing another woman's blog.
Yeah.
Like trying to promote her, or
but why,
something that you found interesting, and it's actually you.
Yeah, why would you think it was a woman's?
And I said, when I said that to you, remember, I said I thought it was a woman, and I mean that in the highest compliment.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wrote in one of my poems, I say, you know, woman is the finished product. God, Adam was version 1.1, and the 2.0 finished product is women. It's just, I mean, it chronologically is factually true, but guys will hurt me. It's funny you should say that, but I was having a convo recently with some guys who've been YouTubing these kind of, you know, there's all these like specialists in post, like, it's just the guy was having a mini psychotic breakdown basically, and he was like, yeah, women are telling men need to be men and this, and I go, look, all of these terms mean nothing to me, I don't care. And all I said was, I just think women are the better creation. And he was like, how can you say that? Everything's done by men and da-da-da, and this was men. I go, I'm not attacking you, I'm just saying my opinion is I just think women are better. Don't get me wrong, not all women generally aren't. They suffer the same problem as men, which is they're stupid, and the masses are just like cows who literally, I can't understand what purpose they serve apart from showing you how not to be. But that condescending tone aside, it's just, and that's a human thing, you know.
You're right. I think what you're describing right now, sorry to cut you off, I think what you're describing isn't an issue necessarily of being a man or being a woman. It's, we are all human regardless of our gender, and if you make up your own stuff and it doesn't align with your Lord who created you, that is where you're going to be an idiot of a human, where you are going to constantly, you're going to be insecure about yourself, and you're going to project that onto other people and put other people down. I've had a lot of backlash in the work that I do. There was one woman who had a really large following, kind of like the kind of human that we're describing, where they want to be so perfect, they want to follow the deen as perfectly as possible, and they think they are like holier than thou, that type of person. And she took a photo of me where I was holding a dilator, and in the, like, I was describing the fact that I recommend women to use this even before you're married, just for you to get to know your own vagina, know how it works, know how to put something into your vagina without any pain, and be in control and prepare and that kind of thing. And she took it to mean that I'm promoting a woman to lose her virginity. Like the level of ignorance really disturbed me, that she thought that inserting a dilator is a woman taking her own virginity, thinking that the man's penis should only be the first thing to enter a woman's vagina, that kind of thing. And she literally took my photo, she like scribbled out my face, saying that, she literally called me the devil. And I'm just like, that is that is the, I don't even know what to say, to be honest. It's just like, that is not Islam. Like, it's really not Islam at all. That's not from Allah. Like,
No,
Allah
the thing
doesn't,
not.
Allah doesn't humiliate us or shame us like that in public.
Mm.
Yet for some reason humans think they are higher than Allah and have the power to do that.
No, this is the thing. Like, if you're gonna, firstly, this is what I mean about basic humanity. Like, forget trying to be a Muslim. Just
Yeah.
don't be an idiot. Be a human.
Yeah.
Know yourself, and then say, like, that's why my favorite Sahabi is a drunk, and he was a drunk. He had a drinking problem, but the Prophet ﷺ himself said he loves Allah and His Messenger. Now, how does that square what we think of? But if you have iman, you can't say he doesn't have iman. The Prophet ﷺ himself has said he loves Allah and His Messenger. So firstly, you haven't read your post properly about what it is, and you're judging, which is great. I judge everything, especially people's clothes, and what they say and what they think and what they do. But the point is, at least get it right. I can show you why what you're wearing is terrible, because it just looks terrible, or the colors don't match, or the cut should be better, or I just don't like it because I don't like animal print, unless Forecast wears it. But so know what you're talking about. Then, so she's cussing you for using a dildo. Secondly,
it's not a dildo. It's actually not even a dildo. It's called a dilator, but she thinks it's a dildo. So yeah, carry on.
You don't understand virginity. Thirdly, the
Yeah.
issue of dildos, ikhtilaf, right? So some would say not, others say you do. What do you do when there's ikhtilaf on something? Shut up. You can say, I don't think it's right. Other scholars say they do. Generally, most things there's ikhtilaf on. So, all right, fine. The world hasn't ended in 1500 years because there was khilaf on something. And for context, cultures, whatever. And then you're like, wait, so all of your deen rests on telling someone not to break their hymen because that's virginity, or use a dildo. Like, could you not be having sex with someone instead of like doing, like, maybe that's the issue. Maybe you need to like help them to have better sex, because why else would you do that with your life? Why?
Yeah.
And
I agree.
See the stuff that you're doing, and you're helping people with it's an extreme problem. It's something that people don't know about. It happens, yes, to a lot of people and in various shades, but it's something that's debilitating, that naturally incurs shame, just without Islam. Then you got Islam, then you got our culture and community, and it's like, why would you shit on someone who's doing something good? Why? Or these people who are talking about female orgasm, or astaghfirullah, they're making people. So what is the alternative? We just lie back and think of, like, Lahore. Like, what are you? Do you not think what you're saying? Astaghfirullah. Yeah. What is your point? Or even disagree. It's like, all right, we disagree then. Fine. Yeah. And this is, again, basic stuff. Forget about religion. You'll find in I don't know, whatever, like kids' textbooks, that hymen is seen as whatever, hymen can, forget about religion, hymen can break because of anything, this, that, like, what are you doing? Like, what are these, and this is what I mean by the kind of lack of critical thinking, lack of being able to use Google. It's unbelievable. I mean, and the stuff you're talking about, way better than me. The stuff I've heard, like, one of my friends, she was married, and it's just heartbreaking. She was told by her husband that he has to be on top because he's the man, and any other position is taking away from the quwwah of the man. And I'm just like, bloody hell, mate. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, are you that fragile as a human being? Just I don't, or the thing they do about ghira, like, I don't understand how people do things. It's sad, and it's sad because it's again with Muslim marriage, and unless thinking, oh, it's a bit crap, I'm not doing it. Muslims generally don't have that, whether it's the cultural or the religious knowledge to be any marriage that women didn't want to have, that was bought before the Prophet ﷺ, he never stopped them from getting divorced. Even if it was the woman who just said, don't like him, don't want to be married to him, no problem. All right, actually, I don't want to divorce him. I'm just letting women know that you can divorce your husband. It's there. And this is what I mean about what is the religion that you're following. If that's a hadith and it happened at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, where did this thing come from? And I'm not hating that it exists, or the sanctity of marriage, or making divorce difficult because people are fickle and en masse stupid, but making it impossible, making it where it's shamed, making it where you can't be like, this isn't working for me, and
Yeah.
forget about the sadness of, I think in the West, if we just liberalized a little bit and been like, as long as you keep it halal, I'll allow you. Like, whatever it is, go for it. You're probably going to have at least 4 marriages by the time you're 25, but hopefully you'll learn you've got to pick up your underwear off the floor or whatever it is that you got to do. And it's sad. It's really sad. Like I said, these quotes you read, the lives people lead, and it erodes away at you when you're living a miserable life. Like, and, you know, talking about men and stuff, you know, there's Calm and all of this stuff about male suicide and whatnot. And one of the key things is the whole sort of issue of not being able to talk about it, not speak about it, and just that gradual erosion of your life and your sanity. And it does. And of course, intimacy and attention, we love attention, who doesn't? But it's going to erode your soul and your mind. And to
that's what we're all seeking. We're in this life, I think we're all seeking intimacy, connection, attention, and you can sum up all of that with the word love. We are all seeking love in whatever form, companionship, whatever, and we can seek that in the creation. And yes, we might get that hunger fulfilled from creation, but when we do that, and there's nothing wrong with it as long as, like, you know, it's halal, but when we do that, we are limiting ourselves, because we are seeking the love, the companionship, the attention from creation, and creation is limited. Like, especially if you're seeking love and companionship from a human who is flawed, it's never going to be perfect love, perfect attention, perfect companionship. But when we
perfect, because it's to quote myself, it's one fucked up individual loving another fucked up individual, and if that isn't the very definition of miraculous, I don't know what is. You don't have to be with me. You could leave. One of the greatest things in a marriage is when you're an absolute idiot and she doesn't leave you. If you leave after that, that's fine. But you're like, I have no rational reason, even love, why you would stay. But you do. And that's one of the peak thing. Obviously, that's not condoning all of the bad stuff, but I mean, it's when, and everyone should know themselves that you're an idiot. Like all this stuff people are quoting, oh, that's so beautiful, you're men. I'm not the poster boy for men. I'm just gladly not an idiot. That's about it. I'd still have, like, I am an idiot in lots of other things, quite proudly so. But you're to someone to see all your flaws and all. And this is the fun thing about sex, that if you like, it's weird because when I work with women, and in Saudi I have to say that because it's not normal, but it's weird because I'll know when they're on, and they'll be like, how do you know? And it's like loads of little clues, like, I don't know, all the stuff that happen. I don't know, I just know stuff. Yeah. And like, they'll be like, how did you know? How did you whatever? Or you go get, and you know, you go get a bit of chocolate. Yeah, you're feeling a bit low now, whatever. Get them a coffee and a chocolate. And they're like, how did you know? And it's like, well, because that's kind of what you were doing. And it's weird because maybe as an observer, it's a bit easier. It's the equivalent of what women do when they come in, bring you a cup of tea, or they know you're hungry, or just avoid you, or you've done your whatever. It's observational, whatever. But it's what was I saying? Why did I get sidetracked by that? What was I saying? I don't know.
I'm not sure the point you were trying to make, but what I really like what you're saying there is basically you were saying that you are an observer. Like, being an observer of people allows you to tap into, I think, your intuition. The fact that you're able to see a woman and just know that she's on her period. And
it'll be lots of like apparent things, like
it's non-verbal cues. It's her body language, and it's putting it in context.
The drops, maybe being hungry, slightly irritable, not changes in their behavior from the baseline, their routine. Maybe like one of them, they always have the AC on, and she was feeling cold where she normally feels hot. So I'm like, oh, hormonal changes results in body. And she's like, how did you know? I go, well, because you normally are like this. The fact that you're now feeling cold when you normally feel hot or whatever is normally a result of hormonal changes. And you're just like, how did you see that? How did you know that? Or I don't know, like you just know, like and it's sad that people live this life of not being vulnerable and not being open, and not, because there's so much on the other side. It's really, that's one thing I wish men could just, I find it very limiting when I see a lot of people living the way they do, not hating, but it's just very, very limiting. Like, little God complex of yeah, I did her good, whatever. Yeah, you're done. And I'm like, really? Like, you could have not ejaculated, not come, done a million things that according to your metrics is shit, and she would have been a lot happier, and so would have you. But you know, it's like, yeah, did her good, Tom. And it's just sad. It's just living sad. And I don't think God created you to live sad. I mean, Iblis, Balasa, that's what it means. He despaired. It's this despair and sad.
Yeah, losing hope.
Yeah, and it is.
Yeah,
it is very, very sad. And I just think there's a lot of stuff out there which I think if Muslims, you know, just read up on basic anatomy, read up on their tradition, and that would open up a whole wealth of stuff out there about you know, whatever tantric stuff or fun. But just I don't know, I just see a lot of sadness and a lot of stupidity. And
yeah, what I see it as, like, Muslims for some reason like to live in lack, and that's not the definition of being a Muslim. Like they don't see this whole dunya that we're living in as abundant in every sense of the word, like wealth, health, everything. Like we are meant to be abundant because Allah is giving us everything, like handing it to us, but we are saying no, we must sacrifice ourselves in order to achieve Jannah. Like we can't, like, maybe this whole idea that we can't experience orgasm or pleasures. The more we experience orgasm and pleasure in this life, the less likely we will get to Jannah. Like we need to sacrifice ourselves. That's, I think, how people are seeing it. And it is, as you're saying, it's not from Islam at all. Like Islam came to liberate us in every area of our life. Like it came to liberate women. It came to liberate women sexually. It came to liberate us just in every single sense of the word, like that freedom, I think. And just having peace, knowing that Allah chose for you to exist, just like he chose for everyone else to exist, just how he chose for everything in creation to exist, and he decided that you are worthy of existing. But I think that when you don't understand your own existence, you just kind of just live on autopilot, and you're just used to putting people down because you are very insecure about yourself. You don't have enough self-worth. And I think that I feel like the Allah that I worship is a very different Allah to what other Muslims are worshipping. Like I see that other Muslims are, I think I made a post on this where, like, if that's really who you think Allah is, then your God is very unjust. And I couldn't be a Muslim if I felt that the God I believe in is unjust. It doesn't make sense. The whole notion of we're living in this life to be tested, yet our God is unjust. Like it doesn't sit well with me. Like I couldn't be a Muslim if I truly believed that. So I feel like if Muslims are living like that, they are making their lives very, very difficult and miserable, thinking, hey, I'd rather be miserable in this life because I'm gonna have Jannah the next. Like it's messed up and sad that some Muslims who put other Muslims down are thinking this is how I'm going to get to Jannah.
But again, this is I don't think this is a fiqh issue. It's not a religious issue. It's a people issue, and it's traumas that need to contain these things to justify how they live their entire life, and that's again very sad. Like I think one of the greatest things that sex is sex. Oh, I remember what I was saying before. It's like, you know how ironically vaginismus shows. I was going to rename vaginismus to like some sort of gladiatorial name that you could think like vaginimus. But how that moment is like, I think, you know how I said like sex is a way to sort of see God, as it were, which is ironic because what's the number one thing that everyone shouts at? Oh my God! Like it's like, wow, people are doing dhikr when having sex, even if they're important. But anyway, that moment, it's like everything in your life, all the trauma, everything about you is like a crucible or a nexus point about you, and that's what I think. And I think you can begin to transcend the physical. So it's not just like, not to sound whatever, but when you touch someone's body, you're touching their soul and their heart and who they are, and knowing how they think. Like yes, there's physical, tangible, erogenous zones and things that people like and people don't like. But why do you like what you like, and why don't you like what you don't like? And why is this pleasurable and not pleasurable? And why was it pleasurable in that situation? And there's like a whole, I like people puzzles. Like I like how people are put together, which is why women are fun, because they're like just, there's a lot more pieces. You know, men have like one, and it's like blue, red, blue, red. But and seeing that in someone, like, it's weird. You can see so much of someone in that moment, but you need to know who they are. You need to know all these other bits, but you'll see how someone behaves in that moment, and it's I think that's the really pleasurable bit, where you're interacting with someone, you're speaking, but it's not using, like, obviously I like poetry because, like, you know, but yeah, it's been described as female erotica quite a lot, which is a bit funny.
Your poems?
Yeah. And it's just,
I need to read them then.
Because
basically when you told me, have you checked out my poems, I was like, let me go and check out your poems. So I looked at them and I was literally like, I feel like it's like, are these actually, did I click on the right link? Is it actually your poems? And I was like, this has been written by a woman, surely. Like, just doesn't seem like a man could write something like that.
I just don't
but I didn't read all the words. There's lots on there from what I could see, mashallah. So I will, inshallah, have a look through, because it looks amazing, mashallah.
No, I just think if we don't allow ourselves to men and women to, and I think this is the precursor for any sex work, is not just knowledge and education and experience, but prior to that, being in a comfortable space where you're okay to be vulnerable, you're okay to be open, you're okay to mess up, you're okay to try and experiment and do stuff, and it's okay and you can laugh about it, and reaching that space, I think, is the sexiest thing that you can happen, where you can just open up and be vulnerable and be open and behave like a bit of a scared little child, as we all are, and then, you know, I just think it's sad that people lie. I mean, I hate it. So I just think it's sad that people need to lie or pretend to be something in such a beautiful, intimate, kind of divine space where you're like, oh, look at that, mate. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, and women doing the same. It's just, you don't need to look good for Instagram at that moment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You let it go, and just, it's sad, because I just think you're missing out on you know, your own experience, like yourself, like you learn about yourself, you'll and I think it's a great way as well, you know, the work that you're doing. I think because sex is such a crucible for so much of who you are, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, at that moment as well, and the evolving nature of it, I just think you learn a lot about yourself. And certainly,
Yeah.
for me, it's been of an evolution, and I just think it's you know, taught me a lot about myself, and it's sad because it's like one of the most basic human, you know, it's one of the signs of our existence, and you know, literally Mrs. Gren, like it's you know,
Yeah.
is a sign of life, you know, literally everywhere. And you know, with us, God's made us so conscious of it that it's weird, like orgasm and sounds, not that you always have to, but like, it's like God's given you music, but he's also given you the instruments and allowed you to choose what you want to play and how you want to play. And we're just like, you know, plucking a string here and there. And
Yeah.
it's sad. It's very sad. When there's a whole...
That's a beautiful way of seeing it, definitely. And we all think about sex. All of us. Like, it's even as a child, like as young as 3 or 4, they are thinking about it, not knowing maybe what it physically involves, but they are noticing their body.
Per se, it's sex is a physical adult form of love, you know.
Yeah.
We want love. For me personally, maybe it's my self-worth issues and, you know, all my stuff that makes me me, but to be seen, to be understood, to be known for who you really are in a very, you know, naked way. You know, on Yom Al-Qiyamah, you're going to be resurrected naked. Like, there's, on that day, you will be known, and not just you, the whole of creation will see you as you are. So
Yeah.
to be able to share that, it's like a little, sex is like a little mini Yom Al Qiyamah. It's a bit scary, you're naked, but then, you know, with a bit of help, you can either go heaven or hell, you know, and you got to do a bit.
Wow. I'm writing it down because it's that good.
Oh boy,
I may make a post and tag you. Sex is like a mini Yom Al Qiyamah. I literally have never thought of it that way. But like, there are so many nuances in what you just said. So that's something, inshallah, that I'm going to reflect.
No worries. But
that's a first. I think you commented on one of my posts saying that's a first, the one that I made about using Allah's names to help you with any difficulties in your sex life.
I like.
And yeah, I feel like this is a first. I've never heard anyone describe sex like a mini Yom Al Qiyamah. Really pondering that. That's amazing.
No worries.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this live. I know you were a bit nervous. And
I haven't even been really reading the comments much.
I know the comments have been flowing, and the annoying thing is that when we get off this live, I won't be able to see everyone's comments. Okay. But when I save this, inshallah, if you're all here live, when I save this,
right.
If you leave a comment once I save it, I'll be able to see those. But I won't be able to save all these live comments because I've seen there are so many amazing live comments. Thank you so much, everyone. But they will disappear. The comments will disappear. The live will stay. But if you have something that you want to say to either me or Ayaz or both of us, comment it once I save it under the video. Those ones will stay, okay? And either tag me if you want me to see it, or tag Ayaz, or both of us, whatever. That would be great. But there's been an amazing conversation in the comments, so thank you so much.
I think.
How are you feeling, Ayaz?
I'm all right. I told you, once I get rambling, I don't know what I'm saying. But just to remind the audience, I'm not a scholar. I'm not a faqih. If you ask me to do anything, I'll just probably say nothing, or it's halal or haram, depending on how I feel and how funny it is at the time. I'm not a scholar. I'm not a sex educator. I did biochemistry a long time ago. I can't even remember most of the menstrual cycle. I just thought it was awesome. But it's weird that in my adult life, realizing that people don't think like this, and the byproduct of not thinking like this, or at least being open to it, and the sadness that it brings.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone asked a question and we ignored it, or we didn't answer.
Let me have a look. So
this is hilarious. The other thing is, especially
yeah, go for it.
In the culture that we live in, with the smartphones have changed everything, right? So apart from porn being everywhere in the world, and Snapchat and filters and God knows what, and Instagram, it's changed the world, and there isn't this kind of East and West and all of it. It's one big gloop, you know. It's one big app, and I think for us now to stick to the way that maybe we grew up thinking about sex and intimacy and love and marriage, I just think it's you know how we talked about us being in this middle of this culture, living in the West, which then got transported to so-called the East with the internet and with satellite. And you know, it's very interesting. Like, for example, I think in India, as they rolled out the satellite dishes, the level of marital and family discord increased because people could see. You know, there's lots of research on this, quite funny, but you know, or seeing.
I'm not surprised.
Palatial homes and this, that, the other, and
yeah,
realizing how poor they are and stuff. But there's now this global culture, and in the middle of it, I mean, it's amazing how it's positively and negatively kind of affecting things. You know, like, it's very unusual. Like, if you look in Pakistan, India, these areas, even in you know, a lot of the Arab world, you had the BLM movement, but then that carried a lot of stuff about trans, queer, whatever agendas. Not that I'm getting into that, but I'm just saying it was intrinsically linked to the core BLM. And then as the BLM thing got pushed out, those people who were advocates of it carried on. And the posts that you see, you think, how did this end up in some little village in wherever? And you're like, you know, strong, and you're just like, wow. And I think if we don't address this issue and bring it kind of back home and into our roots and deal with it, because it's been talked about by God, it's been talked about by the Prophet ﷺ, and this prudishness didn't exist then. Like, another simple example of what I think is just so unusual. Alhamdulillah, I was in Medina last weekend, alhamdulillah, and whenever I'm in the Prophet's mosque, I just think if a bunch of black shirtless guys walked into the mosque and started dancing and singing, and all the men and women came and gathered around them and watched, right? And the men then even went and joined and danced with the men dancing, would that be okay? And clearly the answer would be no. That could not be okay to happen in the Prophet's mosque. And the ironic thing is that's exactly what happened in the Prophet's mosque, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the Abyssinians came. They were a bunch of black guys, topless, dancing, doing their traditional dancing, holding their spears, even they still do. And Muhammad ﷺ came and he had Aisha radiallahu anha on his shoulder, and Imam Ali went and joined and danced with them, and they were singing the song. You know, the Prophet is a righteous man, and I'm like, that kind of sums up to me kind of where we're at in terms of this thing of just you. If the Prophet ﷺ was to come now, he'd be too liberal for the conservatives, too conservative for the liberals, too violent for the pacifists, too passive for the he just wouldn't. The Muslims wouldn't accept him. He wouldn't fit the paradigm of what we are. And can you imagine like women coming to saying, I don't want a man because he's miserly. Okay, I just don't like him. Okay, wouldn't exist. Women openly coming and saying, talking about sex positions with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like, and even when the guys who are doing it now, like the people we mentioned, mashallah, they're doing a great job. But even the ones who tried to do stuff before, it was awful. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad. And you're like, mate, if you're not having at least maybe not great sex, but some form of sex that makes me want to have sex, please don't talk about sex. Just maybe keep it literal or legalistic or anatomical. Don't try and give me the East. Like I was at a talk once, and one scholar, mashallah, he was like, women why do women even need to be in education? Because they just want to get married, and even when they get married, when they get pregnant and have a child, they don't even look at the husband anymore. Ha ha ha. And I'm like, well, maybe that was good for you in Egypt, mate. And a lot of, and I'm not even knocking that, because a lot of even women will think that, and that is like, and that's the other thing with this kind of attitude where everyone's like, you got to give space to everyone. There are the prudes, there's people who look upon what we're saying and think it was absolutely disgusting, and that's not their way. And I totally get that, because a certain culture, you don't talk about certain things, and intimacy and love and even sex is displayed differently. Like, I don't know, if you look at what Japanese are into, it's just a bit creepy, but do you know what I mean? They like it, so let them have it. But I just, in the modern day and age with what's going on in the world, if we just make us out to be such a sexless, boring, just it doesn't touch you as a human, quite there you go, quite literally, it does. It doesn't. The one that's meant to be able to touch you doesn't. So if they can't touch your body or your heart or your mind or your soul, like, what are we really doing here?
It's true.
So I just,
that's beautiful.
Stuff like what you're doing is very, very important, and I hope,
thank you.
Just
want to share that I got the book that arrived today.
My book.
I'm excited. So I literally have never heard of this book until I saw that you shared it on your feed. It's called The 40 Rules of Love by Elif Shafak. And this is a recommendation from Ayaz. He says it's amazing. He says it's life-changing. So I'm going to dive in, inshallah, and I'm excited.
It's I know I've got some good friends who absolutely slate the crap out of that book, and I agree with them, but I still love it because it's not an accurate historical document. It is a work of fiction. A lot of the stuff said about Rumi and Shams is accurate, but the whole other stuff, it is fictional. It has been secularized. A lot of Islam stuff has been taken out, and obviously we know a lot of stuff has been secularized about Rumi's poems and stuff. But I just think it's a lovely, beautiful book, very easy to read, very simple story. If, like me, at one point you never heard of this stuff before, it's just a nice, digestible kids' way to introduce you to a lot of ideas that I think are intrinsic to. Look, Mohammed's saying check out Zira's review because he's slated. He had the exact bipolar opposite view, but I actually agree with him. I agree with all the content. I'm like, but it's still good though. It's a bit like, all right, you're not reading the Quran, but you're reading like a Disney pamphlet, colorful book. Like you're still closer than if you didn't read it. But it's not an Islamic manual of how to find God, but it's just a brilliant story.
I like that. So a few people a couple of years ago recommended Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist, and I read it and I was disappointed. And then I read a review of this book saying, I didn't like The Alchemist, but I love this book. So that's another thing that prompted me to get this.
First time I read The Alchemist, I absolutely loved it. I had never read anything like spiritual in that sense. That was a long time ago. After reading more stuff, when I read it again, I just thought it's trivial and it's like a poor.
Yeah, for me, I think because the timing of when I read The Alchemist made it feel very basic, because I think I'd already done some spiritual journey stuff on my own. But if I had read it like maybe when I was 18 or something, maybe I would have been like blown away by it. But I was just like, I kind of know this stuff already. It's like nothing mind-blowing and amazing. I don't know, like I could be wrong about the book, but I read it and I was just like left very disappointed. And then when I saw that you recommended this book, I was like, okay, let me go check it out on Amazon. I always read reviews before I buy books, even if it's just like a few reviews. And then one of the reviews was literally like, I didn't like The Alchemist, but I love this. So that made me think, okay, let me dive in. Combination of you reviewing it, saying it's an amazing book, and someone else saying, you know, based on the fact that they didn't like The Alchemist, I was like, I need to buy that. Luckily, with Amazon Prime, got it today, literally about 15 minutes before this live. So I was like, it was meant to be.
MashaAllah. No, let me know what you think about it.
I will, inshallah. I'm a bit of a slow reader, and I read multiple books at the same time. But inshallah, I will read this.
I really need to improve my reading, but let's not talk about that. But yeah, I hope you enjoy it and you like it. Is anyone? I'm so conscious that I've just ignored comments and people have.
If don't worry, if you've missed questions, people can DM you. I'm sure you've had loads of DMs recently since you were telling me you've had strangers adding you.
Private, so I wouldn't, despite being a flagrantly attention-seeking exhibitionist extrovert. I'm strangely like, why are people trying to add me? And since you did the thing, people actually, I thought, oh, it's related to that. So I added people. And then people are like, oh, it's really great what you're saying. I'm like, no, it really isn't. But I'm trying to not be rude and be myself, which I'm never good at. And someone said something, this has been very real. That's a great compliment, because that's one thing you can guarantee. If you're going to talk to me, I will just say whatever it is I think, and then I get in trouble. But I hope it's useful. I hope... I don't know, like, I'm just thinking now, if you've, like, people just need to, like, it's out there. It's not some magic. I didn't go on a mountain and read this stuff, you know. And the fallback of it is, like, most men just go, you know, you'll get, which I wish it would be so much simpler than having to deal with women. But it's, and normally they're higher income, aren't they? Higher income brackets, both, you know, imagine the suits. And if he was my size, we could share. Anyway, so, there's a lot of backlash about saying stuff like this or talking about this, and it seemed like you're attacking men or women or the religion or people trying to preserve whatever it is that they've done their whole life. And,
I think you mentioned it a lot earlier on, where you were saying that, you know, Muslim boys, you described them as Muslim horny teenage boys, not having the ability to just talk to girls and understand them, and then them just continuing like that into being an adult man. If you don't understand women and how they work, they're like this scary thing, like, oh no, I can't handle her. And it's either that I need to be like single my whole life, or I get married, don't understand women, you know, blame them for everything wrong in the marriage, get divorced, and then that constant cycle. Or, as you mentioned, deciding Islam is making my life too hard, let me be gay, whatever it is that you described. And I agree, there is backlash for saying this, but we can't just look at someone who decides to, like, we can't just look at a man who decides to be with another man and then not understand, how did he get there in the first place? And that whole other conversation.
People just, Muslim women marrying, you know, non-Muslim men. And they'll say things like, when I talk to him, he talked to me like a human being. And I'm like, yeah, because most Muslim men, and having been there, and all the stuff I'm talking about, it's not like I didn't think it. It's not like I wasn't racist or I didn't think all the things that we're talking about. I did. Like, you know, I'm a brown Muslim male raised in England. Like, what did you expect in a Muslim household? Yay, good food. But the when you find truth, when you have that inquisitive nature or that critical thinking, you think, wait, this doesn't add up. This doesn't make sense. How is this supposed to? How does this fit with this? But then, you know, we're supposed to, you know, clitoris, multiple orgasms, men once goes to sleep. Like how and God made these, so how does that work? And then, oh, so this view must be in Islam because this hadith. Go and read about that hadith. And this is all in English. Like I didn't do it in Arabic. You know what I mean? You can Google this stuff. You just maybe want to click on the things that you're not clicking on. You know, listen to that scholar that maybe you don't like, or he's an X or a Y, and you'll educate yourself about something. You know, if you don't know, ask those who know. And I think Muslims need to get educated. And even when they do it, like I've seen books that do have like basic physiology, anatomy, and then they kind of put Islam on, and it's just like maybe the other beautiful thing is looking at what do you call it? The range, the stuff of opinions on things, because
the differences in opinion.
It makes you think, all right, well, that's not Islam, and but it's what is it? It's ijma of all the scholars, and you're like, it probably won't be then, will it? Do you know what I mean? It's probably your opinion, you and your mate Fred, who are the only ones who are Muslim on the planet. And it's when you see the kind of plethora of opinions, you're like, oh, okay, so all of this is Islam. I feel fine with this one, but that one, there's ikhtilaf on it. There's ikhtilaf on you know, a lot of things. And it makes you a little bit more. Especially, I think, I mean, for the layperson, there's no particularly following a madhab. If you do look into madhabs and opinions or, you know, whatever, when you get onto things like whatever in fiqh, like that is fun. I don't know, like, you know, whether pre-seminal or post-seminal fluid is what do you call it? Impure or not or whatever. Once you see, oh, there's been a range of opinions. So if you were to do something, don't think, like there's this absolutism of, if I do this, then I'm just damned in hell. And because I did this, then I just might as well just be damned. And, you know.
Yeah, like with Islam, when there is a difference in opinion, I've been taught that go for what's easiest. That's what Islam teaches us. Go for what's easiest out of those differences. But I think what most Muslims are doing is that whole, I need to sacrifice myself. If there are these differences in opinion, let me go for the extreme, for the hard, because the more I do that, the more I will be loved by Allah and the more likely I will enter Jannah. I think people are doing that. When Allah wants ease for us, people are making their lives more difficult than it needs to be.
And then the other thing, you know, that we spoke about of we could speak about a million of these things, but the hypersexualization of women, like, no offense, if you've got a foot fetish, God bless you, but seeing an ankle shouldn't make you lose your mind and crash your car into, unless it's maybe a very attractive ankle. I don't know. Maybe she's wearing an anklet and it's a limited edition. I don't know. But generally, something's a bit wrong. I just don't, you know, it's where everything becomes high. And the Muslim bit comes out in where, like, classic days, where you're working in retail, you can't, like, if someone's like you, Muslim hijabi, Assalamu alaikum, sister. But, you know, Emma, you're right, Emma, how was your weekend? Yeah, how's your dad?
Yeah.
Hospital. And you're like, what do you think the Muslim sister is not feeling like a sister? She's like some giant haram volcano of licentious sex haramness, or completely non-human.
Yeah.
A human being. She has a weekend. She has a life. Like, what is going on with that one?
True. And women, regardless of faith, want to be desired. Like, not all women will admit to that, but it's true. Women want
everyone,
you're right. But I feel like women have it differently. Like, yes, men want to be desired, but women really want to feel desired. They want to feel attractive. They want to feel beautiful. They want attention, not in a bad way, in a good way. We're seeking that. And if you, as a brother, come and see me and are like all modest and like salam sister, and then like flirting with, you know, the non-Muslim, it makes me feel like I am not worthy of attention. I am not worthy of being desired. And I'm not saying that you need to you know, be vulgar in how you deal with me, but it's like, just be normal with me. I'm a human. Like, you don't need to be like ultra modest or whatever, you know, with me, and then like really casual and relaxed with someone else, because also the non-Muslim doesn't want you to be like that with her, all flirty and like vulgar with her. That's you objectifying her, and she doesn't deserve that, just as much as I don't deserve for you to just be like, you're not important, sort of thing.
Someone just said, I like getting free coffee at Nero, not gonna lie, I'll use it to buy. You're a bad person. I love it. I would do that. But I just think it's again, it's this again, Muslim assumption. So the Muslim one, because she's Muslim and represents all of Islam, and that was one thing that I was trying to, I don't know how to be polite, so I was just not saying it, but you know, it's nice to see him. I don't represent all Muslim men. I barely represent myself best at times, you know. I wouldn't like me if I represented me, and I do. So it's really like, you can't just, this thing that we have, like the like non-Muslims, oh, they're all at it, they all want it because they're doing zina, they're having great sex. No, they're not. Like, talk to women and they'll tell you they're probably faking it most of the time. Like, and these were assumptions that were challenging myself. I was chatting to a friend and I was like, can I just ask you some questions? And this, the weird thing about me is one of the reasons, so men will cuss me a lot, quite rightly sometimes, no, but they'll cuss me a lot, but at the same time they wish they could have the conversations, because I can actually talk, like I've actually spoken, like I could actually have a conversation with women about sex, because guess what, I'm actually talking about sex. I'm not thinking I'd bone you, I'd like to bone you, do you know what I mean? Oh yeah, that's really, I'm sure you like it. Like, no, I genuinely want to know. And it's absolutely mind-blowing, the stuff that I've heard. Like, and I was like, wow, you challenged my own assumptions. I just thought, you know, non-Muslims going at it all the time, having loads of sex. Like, no, it's actually been rather rubbish. I've had to do this, I've had to do that. And it's like, wow, why was I thinking, why was I thinking, you know, or just like before talking to you, and I was thinking about Mo, I was like, Muhammad, you happy now? He's known as Mo down in the cafe, do you know what I mean? With the lads. It's what was I saying? What was I saying?
I wish I could say. I literally like feel like, how did we land here? It'll probably come to you. And again, for anyone not sure who Mo is or who Mohammed is, it's my husband. So, and you two have met before, you and my husband, isn't it?
Yeah. So talking to women about sex, and it's like, how do you do? Because I'm actually talking, I actually want to know. I actually want to figure stuff out or learn something. But because of this hypersexualization and not being able to, and this is the thing, if you talk to enough women, after a while, it just stops being so, you're like, yeah, and then it's a bit weird, because I definitely know when women talk to me, thing of I'm and you, and it's like, no, love, you're gonna have to try a lot harder. Let's accessorize a little bit, maybe make your shoes kind of match your outfit a little bit, and then we can talk, or say something interesting, or just, there's this thing, because men act like that, it's like, I can give you a bit of attention and you'll chase me, and it's like, no, say something, like, it's boring. And guys allowed themselves to just do these things a little bit, it would just allow them to experience things a lot deeper. Like, you can have decent conversation, and most people are just people, they're not these animals on heat all the time, which, you know, but being on heat is great, but it depends what gets you going as well. Like, you might just be a very binary, transactionary kind of person, or someone might be very sapiosexual or demisexual, or, you know, love all of that.
Asexual.
Or asexual, yeah. Cool, blimey. And then, you know, differences in libido and stuff like that. And there's just the other thing about this, like the menstrual cycle, sex, all of that, it's one of those things that kind of touches on your entire being. It touches your life, on your background, on your body, on your diet, on your exercise, on your trauma, on your childhood, on your religion, on your mentality, on your current state. And you're like, bloody hell, you know? I guess men are lucky in that. It's just you press a button and it's just turned on, turned off.
And on that note, I feel like men assume, you know, the men that even are willing to please their wives, men assume that women work that way too, that women have this on-off switch, which we don't. Ours is like a lot more gradual.
As simple as a man. It's like a man is a one button on-off. a woman is a bit more like an ever-changing algorithm code that you need to figure out at that moment, which is possibly why it's fun.
It's more exciting.
I would say so, but
Yeah.
I like people. I just, yeah.
Because I feel like it was obviously done with divine wisdom. You know, the fact, like, imagine women were just that on-off switch. Men, I think, would get bored very easily. And I think male people get bored very easily. Like men, the masculinity side in each of us wants that adventure, that novelty, the variety of like, oh, what's going to work today? Is this going to work? Oh, no, it's not. Let me try something else. It's like that adventure and that challenge. And I think that's what life is about, is accepting that life is an adventure.
And it allows you to, you know, where I said you reach that state where like it's to feel like one of the greatest things is when you feel I can say, do anything, and people call it not being judged. And I don't know what that means because I'm very judgmental. But the point is, it's where you feel I can be myself. I could do anything. I could explore. I could just freaking hell if I, you know. And I'm like, why would you not want that as your partner? And I think once you get in touch with yourself in regards to those things, you can then add, like, I just don't think there's nothing more attractive than, like, I was asking my friends this, and I said, guys, would you want to marry a virgin or a non-virgin? And obviously people quote the hadith and the non, and I genuinely, and this is a simple example of where I get completely flustered by guys. So I'm just like, genuinely, everyone in the car, you've all been, you know, married or been married, whatever. Why would you want to marry a non-virgin? Like, as a first preference, wouldn't you rather sit with a woman and be...
Sorry, you said, why would you want to marry a non-virgin? You were saying your friends all say they want to marry virgins.
Yes. And they...
Right.
But my thing was like...
And you're like, why do you want to marry a virgin?
Like, wouldn't you rather, if you were interested in someone, you'd be like, all right, what do you like? What have you tried? Oh, that's interesting. Haven't tried that. Or yes, I have. Or, you know, ha, 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 and smile. But whatever, just... What conversation would you have with someone, unless they're very deep and intuitive? But like,
I get what you're saying, and actually, I had a discussion on another live where, unfortunately, we have this whole like divorce crisis where divorced women in the Muslim community are seen as less than because apparently because they are no longer virgins, therefore they are no longer chaste. There is this confusion of like, virginity equals chastity. It's not. Chastity is us having sex in alignment with Islamic principles within the context of a marriage, a spiritual union. And a divorced woman is also chaste if she had sex with her one husband in that marriage and got divorced for whatever reason. Divorce can be a good thing, but she had sex with her one husband. She wasn't having affairs here and there. She wasn't like you know, sleeping with loads of other men. She's still chaste. You know, a widow could be chaste. So I think this whole idea of like seeking virgins or thinking that virgins are better sexually doesn't make sense. I think it's probably the point you're going to raise, where it's like, if you could choose someone who has experience and someone who doesn't, just like, I don't know, like a job interview, would you rather hire someone who has experience and who doesn't? And the non-virgin, like you were saying, is the one who will be more in tune of what she likes and what she doesn't.
Maybe, oh, hello. Maybe not. That might not be the case, but it's just a case of you could at least have a conversation, and it's also about the person. Like, you could talk to someone and they're open and they're intuitive and they're like, I don't know, but I feel this, or I think this, or I like I said, it's more it's, I don't know, it just becomes, it's just weird. But in the car, like I said, in the car, it was made out that, number one, I'm going against the Sunnah or Islamic teaching, or two, it's like, you're just weird. And it's weird because from my perspective, and he goes, you know, you could train her on what you like. And I'm like, well, if you're choosing a virgin, then clearly not. Like, what is she gonna,
yeah, it's that whole control thing like we were talking about earlier.
Which is fine.
Men feeling the need
things, but
to control women.
Together or whatever, or I don't know, type anyway. But I don't know. It's just, I don't get how people... And then the like I said, in that conversation, it was that kind of insinuation that it's not the religious right thing. as if like, you know, I don't know. I think it's just really easy for people now, and people prefer it. Like if you look at marriage, who the hell wants to get married? Number one, it looks shit. Number two, it's really difficult. Number three, it's not going to happen. Doing zina, you could just do immediately, straight away, and why would you, you know? And it's weird because the culture now is a bit different to when I was a Jack the Lad. It's people actively, Muslims, on all these Muslim appy thingies, are proactively just saying that they just want to hook up. And it's like, whether they're younger or they're divorcee, that cultural shifts happen where Muslims are meeting Muslims, and you know, they might look like you and all the typical assumptions that people make, or he's got a beard and very nicely groomed, such as myself at this moment in time. But and they just think, and I would have thought, oh, they're practicing and they want, no, they'll just, it's very, very common. And it's just, I think a lot of it is just the ease, the cultural shift, as well as if these two people wanted to get married, you know, you got to do all the stuff and the this, and I'm just like, dude, if you guys, I think as a community, we needed to really bring the bar down a couple of generations ago, or one generation ago at least, and just said, look, as long as you get married, come to the masjid, we'll get you married off. If you get divorced tomorrow, it's called a learning curve, it's called life. But no,
Yeah.
we don't. It's if you're
Yeah.
married and it will be forever and in the heaven. Really? Mobile phone or Sky?
I feel like what you're talking about is that there is this whole idea of like marriage is everything, and therefore if marriage is everything, it needs to go perfectly, and we need to make sure we choose the most amazing best person, and we can't get divorced because that is a sign of failure, where it's like actually Allah allowed divorce for a reason. It's really sad, and it's not only that, it's like we make marriage really hard, like way more complicated than it needs to be. Like it doesn't need to be that complicated. It's just like there was another live I was doing where the brother was saying that at the time of the Prophet, you know, a man could just go to a woman and say, I like you, do you like me? And then if they did, they would just go to the Prophet, and the Prophet would do their nikah there and then. And if it led to divorce, it was no big deal. Like I feel like it needs to be more like that. I think that's what you're referring to, where you were saying we need to lower the bar. Like marriage and nikah doesn't need to be that complicated. If there is an attraction physically, emotionally, spiritually to another person, and you feel like I want to spend a bit of my life journey with you, whether it is literally just like a month or not a month, sorry, a year or two, and you end up getting divorced. Not a month or two, I meant a year or two. And it happens, right? And it's no big deal. We can get divorced and we can remarry again, marry someone else, whatever. Like it doesn't need to be a big deal. But I think that there is this whole shame aspect of divorce, that I'm a failure if I get divorced. I mentioned in my post recently that I was divorced for a period of time, and it was the best thing that happened to me in my marriage. The divorce was the best thing that happened to me in my marriage. I'm remarried, alhamdulillah, to the same guy. But I feel like where I am right now in my life would be so different. Maybe I wouldn't be doing this work that I'm doing if I hadn't got divorced. I think I'd be miserable, because that separation and that period away from him really got me to just have time for myself and just be like, what are my values? What are my boundaries? It was an amazing thing to get divorced. And I got divorced not knowing whether or not I would ever get married again, let alone get married to the same guy. Like I knew that was a possibility, that I may be a single mother of 2 kids for the rest of my life. And I just had to accept that and be like, I'm cool with that. I can be in a relationship with Allah. And that's what I had to do. And that's what I mean by it was the best thing for me, because before the divorce, I was living in a marriage without Allah. And that's, I think, where all the problems came, because I was like sacrificing myself and thinking, this marriage has to work. This marriage has to work. Oh my God, we have kids. This marriage has to work. And I was trying to force something. And when I just let go and accepted, like, okay, it's not working, we need to separate, it was the best thing, truly. And it allowed me to become who I actually truly am. And it changed him as well. And I wasn't waiting for him to know. We both changed. Like we remarried as different people to when we originally got married. So we got married at 18. Our 18-year-old selves are very different to who we are now. So even though I married the same guy, I felt like I was marrying someone else. It's so strange.
2 husbands for the price of 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Allah. No, I
Alhamdulillah.
think there's incredible maturity in what you're saying, and I can never talk about maturity because I clearly lack it every way. But it's weird because you're saying in everything you're saying, it's weird. All I could think of is nikah literally means like it's a sex contract, right? All
Yeah.
the other stuff,
Nikah means sex.
right? And it's like that's the only bit that's why you're getting married. I mean, if you just wanted to exchange love letters or pay for her apartment, you could do that. Like you don't need a nikah. Like you're getting married for the sex. All the rest is trimming. The ethics, the values, the spirituality, and what we kind of do is make an idealistic, perfected, saintly future state impossibility the kind of foundation for a marriage. So a marriage that isn't founded on Allah. Wait a sec, Tom. Is there a man? Yes. Is there a woman? Yes. Did I give her a fiver? Yes. Were there 2 witnesses? Yes. Isn't that Islamic? Yes. End of. Like that's it's all of your Islam. That's tick. Now, when you go into like the inward dimensions of the spirituality of it or the ethics or morals, that's a different thing. You know, there's halal and tayyib. So it's halal. Give the people some slack. And I find it's just I probably shouldn't say that on the live, but stuff just befogs my mind. Like you got married, you got laid. God bless you. Do you like them? Like you're not gonna know them really until you're married. Yeah. And I'm obviously a big fan of like love and all of that, and digging a scab picking psychopath who wants to peer into people's souls. And I love that Tom has entered the chat. There's someone been commenting every time. Tom, names as Tom. Where you at? Tom's got a following. I just saw. But yeah, I really I think because not good and not being me, it's caused a lot of problems. And I've spent a lot of my life not being me until I'm just like, well, I've not been good at changing this, so I'm just going to stick to being, I don't know, a triangle shaped wheel. And I can say stuff about myself of just like, and I genuinely wish I could, and I still could be, to be honest, when I'm a bit feral, but just the notion of the way most men find just going and sleeping with something very attractive. I don't know. It just doesn't. It doesn't quite tick the like. It just and where people are different, you got to be able to know yourself and say what you like, what you don't like, why you like it, and forget about And the best thing I ever did, mashallah, was Islam told me, no. How about you tell Islam? Yeah. All right. I like X. I like Y. Can I do it? Yeah. All right. Cheers. As opposed to this is what it's guiding me, and you're trying to get a square hole in a round peg or whatever they call it, and it's just
that's the same.
Messed up. It's just so
up.
Like, and I think people need to stop. And this is the thing when you read like legal stuff, it's a bit dry, but it's also like you could be a player, man. You could marry 4 different people every week and divorce them, and there's people who argue with me that but that's not, and it wouldn't be. No, it would be completely halal. There's nothing. You couldn't legally touch it, and the women, you could then get into every little nook and cranny of differences and whether they need to be. He doesn't tell them. He marries 4 different girls every week, and like Sharia is a broad thing. It's for your most animalistic, dog-like, retarded individual, and then your higher evolved, whatever, trying to reach some saintly states of awareness of what God's actually trying to do. But it's got to cover everyone. And the difference between sex is a hunger, and I always see it as it's a need, like hunger is. And so some people will eat McDonald's, and some people won't do anything but fine dining, and it depends what you are. Everyone's had McDonald's at some stage. Some people try and forget it, but it's some people are quite happy with McDonald's. They don't like extra pieces of cutlery, or I don't know, they just don't understand why you should marinate meat or something. I don't know, but that's not them. And it's same thing with people. And I think when it comes to women and how they work, and it's weird because as much as I'll get angry at guys and the way they talk and stuff they say about women and sex, you realize, bloody hell, you're married to someone and it bloody fits. Like she couldn't she wouldn't want a convo of whatever. She wants some caveman, and all right, I guess good for you. Someone said love chicken cottage. There's people talking about chicken cottage. Oh,
you opened up a can of worms with this whole food analogy and sex.
Whatever, but food is better because it is more reliable, and just good food. But I don't know. I just think it's very sad that we cut ourselves off from tradition, from basic knowledge, and it doesn't allow you to evolve as a person. It doesn't look back at yourself and think, flipping heck, this is me. I did not expect I was like this. Like, wow, you know? And I think sex can be one of those liberating things when you're in a relationship of, wow, I didn't, oh, okay, you know?
Yeah. I often say that how you are in the bedroom or wherever you have sex is a reflection of your character and who you actually truly are, and your relationship with God. Like, it shows you, it lays it all out for you and just shows you for real.
There's people comment, this is hilarious, you don't have to attract food or marry it.
It's true.
You need it more frequently.
It's a lot more simple with food, definitely.
Some people,
I mean, it can be simple with marriage, but people are not making it simple, unfortunately.
No, but it's simple, but it's not simple, and this is my point. Like, it is simple. If you didn't care and you didn't want to get to know her and you didn't want to fall in love and you didn't want to, like, you know, just, I don't know, like, I mean, I do what I do, but other people aren't, and it's like, just know yourself. And some people don't want to have deep, meaningful conversations, and some people, you know, don't expect that, you know, you should be able to see me, you know, in a deeper way. Fine, or they just want a cup of tea, or they want whatever, and God bless those who make cups of tea. But I just, people need space and they need time, and the thing that stops it is basic knowledge about basic human things, life experiences, living your own life and figuring yourself out and giving yourself the space to do that, which, like you said in your divorce, you know, you did that. My hair looks terrible, but
this has been amazing. I feel like we've been here for ages.
I'm sorry.
And it's just like it flew by. Like, it was so much that we covered. Like, it started with the menstrual cycle and we just went into so many things, and
I don't know.
It was amazing.
But these
thank you so much, Ayaz, for doing this.
Need to.
I feel like we're going to need to end this soon. Otherwise, we'll just be here for hours and hours and hours. And I've learned so much from this, and I hope that everyone who attended learned so much. And just really, I think the core message is be a critical thinker. Don't just take everything on surface level. Do your own research and enjoy your life. Enjoy sex. That's basically the message of what we're sharing.
Sex is nice.
Thank you, Ayaz, so much for this and for your refreshing view on the menstrual cycle and the way that you think about women differently. It's wonderful. Thank you.
They're nice. I like
it. that's ruining it. That's ruining it. Thank you, Ayaz, truly,
brave you are
for your time.
done. As a Muslim woman of color, I just think you. Like, dude, you're men could go and fight wars and take a bullet, and I think what you're doing is a lot more scarier and a lot more difficult. And the continual, you know, to get up every day and do it, and yeah, you get the messages where you've helped people, but then you're getting all the usual drivel and crap that you have to deal with. And I just genuinely think you, and behind every great woman is a great man. You know. It is really, it's powerful, it's important. I think you're really bringing to light something that's debilitating for people, and I'm really glad you're speaking about it. That's why I saw it and I was shocked, and I was like, oh, someone's speaking about something important. And it's so great to see that it's you, and it's so great to see that it's someone I know and I grew up with, and to think I'd never in a million years think you could go through something like that, but people do, because this stuff is happening to everyone that we know. But the courage and the fortitude to speak up about it, apart from tipping my hat to you, but also your awesome parents for raising you guys the way they did, to have the strength and the courage to talk about this. And it really, you know, it can't be, it's not one of those fun, and all this wokery culture as well, I just find it annoying, because it's not trending right now. It's not fun. You're not trying to do it in a way that maybe others are doing, line with lots of other fun things and agendas. So you are trying to do it in a specific way, being real, being honest, being open, being genuine, but also, you know, from your angle of your faith and exploring that. And I just think it needs to be highlighted how, you know, you need applause. Like you need serious applause and
Thank you.
serious work, man. You really
Means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
work you're doing will probably go far and wide.
Inshallah, I hope so. I really just want people to feel liberated when it comes to their life in general and sex. I just feel like Muslims deserve to be happy. People deserve to be happy. Thank you, Ayaz.
People don't allow themselves to be, so well done you. But
thank you. It means a lot to me. And I really, truly appreciate your time. I'm sure it's really late where you are. It's getting late here too. So thank you so much.
is it
Appreciate it.
2:30?
I really don't know how it was. What time did we start? It's 10:30 here. We started at 8. It's been 2.5 hours. It just feels like it was just a few minutes of talking to you. It just flew by.
You've got to be the adult here and, you know, whatever. But yeah, thank you for the amazing work you do. And like I said, I couldn't say no to you because you're, mashallah, doing something really amazing. So I did want to bottle out and just hide, as I do, but somewhat. But I couldn't because, you know.
I'm glad you agreed, and I'm glad you didn't, you know, last minute say, "Oh no, I'm not going to do it," because I was worried about that. But thank you, I appreciate it.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
All right then, Ayaz, we'll go now, and inshallah, maybe we'll do another one in the future. That would be amazing.
No worries, inshallah. I hope people found it useful and
I'm sure they did.
Google properly, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. Thank you so much, Ayaz. Have a good night.
You too.
Talk soon, inshallah. Take care. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bye.
Cheerio. How do you end this?
Yeah, I'm trying to do that too. It says, oh, there we go. I have to remove you.